I think we are already late by 10 minutes, so we would start with the second speaker. And before this, I would like to welcome everyone to this seventh session of the 54th Annual Conference of Indian Anthropological Society, and it's on interdisciplinary perspectives in anthropological research. So first, I would like to invite the chair, Professor Subir Biswas, Professor, Department of Anthropology, West Bengal State University. Professor Subir Biswas is a professor at Department of Anthropology, West Bengal State University in Kolkata. He is seasoned academic with over of 23 years of teaching experience in the field of anthropology. Professor Biswas has made significant contribution to the study of anthropological demography and health, as well as bioethics. His research focuses on the intersection of population studies, health dynamics, and ethical considerations within the anthropological context. Professor Biswas is committed to advancing the field through both teaching and research, enriching his students' learning experience with his expertise and extensive academic background. I welcome you, sir. So the co-chair for today is Dr. Prashant Chauhan, Associate Professor, Department of Social Work, Amity Institute of Social Sciences. Dr. Prashant Rakesh Chauhan is an Associate Professor at Amity Institute of Social Sciences, Amity University, Noida. His research interest focuses on social work research, particularly concerning women and children. Dr. Chauhan is dedicated to exploring social issues and advancing the field of social work through research and teaching. As a faculty member, he contributes significantly to the academic and professional development of students in the realm of the social sciences. Welcome you, Dr. Prashant. And now I hand it over to Professor Subir Biswas to start the invited guest lectures. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Now check one less speaker.
Three more stories now there. So Supriya ma'am is there, so we can start the work. Supriya ma'am is there. Yes, sir. She's there. Supriya ma'am, you are there?
Good morning, all of you. As we are running late by 10 minutes, so without any comments or anything, I will start the session. And as per request of our first invited speaker, we're supposed to start our session with some online speaker. I think 3 online speaker is there. So at first, may I request Professor Supriya Singh, Adjunct Professor, Department of Social Inquiry, La Trobe University, Melbourne, Australia. Ma'am.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, please.
Oh, good.
Supriya Singh is an Adjunct Professor at Department of Social Inquiry, La Trobe University. She is distinguished sociologist specializing in intersection of money and migration. She has previously served as Professor of Sociology of Communication at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, University. Her academic career also includes times as a research fellow at the Institute of Economic Growth in New Delhi. Outside academia, she has held editorial and research position, including senior research fellow at the Center for Research in Communication and Information Technologies, Melbourne, and featured editor roles at publications in Malaysia and Australia. So, Madam, we are fortunate enough to hear you during next 15 minutes, I think. So now it's yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to present at the Indian Anthropological Society meeting. Let me just share my slide. Oh, you've disabled. Could you enable the screen sharing, please?
Yes, ma'am, it's enabled. Now try, please.
It's enabled? Yeah, okay. Just a minute. Oh, heck. Okay. All right. Today, as you heard, I'm a sociology of money and migration. And today I'm talking of the project that I'm currently doing, which is talking of money and sustainable relationships. And I'm trying to connect the anthropology of money to financial and community education. That's something that I am embarking on for the very first time. So basically, how can the sociology and anthropology of money enrich private and public conversations of money? Yeah, that is the context. So as I said, I'm writing a book called Talking and Not Talking of Money, which has stemmed from my previous research. And I am writing of how conversations of money can uh, actually make relationships sustainable. And I also learned from previous research on economic abuse that if you can speak of money with mutual regard, then it can help prevent economic and financial abuse. It's a very simple reason because if you do not speak of money in relationships, then you assume that everybody has grown up using and thinking about money and managing and controlling money in exactly the same way. But very few of us actually have any templates. And anthropologists and sociologists of money have not really ventured there as to how to actually speak of money so that it makes relationships more sustainable rather than threatening relationships. All right, the central tenets of the anthropology of money is that money is not just a market phenomena, it is a social and cultural phenomena. It is central to the market, but it also has gender, morality, memory, meaning. It is both personal and impersonal. It is a medium of relationship and a medium of care and also a medium of abuse. That is at the center of economic abuse, where money is used to control and dominate somebody. It differs across cultures, and there's more than one kind of money. For instance, if you inherit money, it's not the same kind of money as money that you spent on groceries, yeah? And gift money is not the same as a loan, for instance. So social relationships and cultural values are shaped by money, and different ways of managing money shape relationships of money, yeah? So writing the book, I kind of got stuck thinking that, all right, there are billions of conversations in the world, yeah. And what I'm drawing from my 30 years of research, and particularly the research on economic abuse, how do I embed those? How do I myself translate those insights into financial education for children and financial capability for the rest of us? And I don't think as anthropologists we have ventured into actually translating our own insights into real action that would have impact. Yeah. So I am in a slightly foreign terrain even for myself. Yeah. So Of course, neither side has sought to connect. We do not work with school educators of money. Yeah, financial education, if it's taught at all in schools, is often seen as a branch of mathematics. You usually give some kind of example from a real life situation and ask the students to calculate. It's only seen in terms of quantity. And financial capability, financial literacy, for the most part, everything that's written on it is about growing wealth and assets. It is not about money and sustainable relationships. And they seldom have the culture of money and social relationships at the center. In a country like Australia, that's a very big lack because nearly half the population of Australia is either born overseas or at least has one parent born overseas. 25% of the population in Australia is of non European origin. So to think that European style money will fulfill the needs of everybody in the population sort of falls flat. Yeah. So what I am writing about, and I'm hoping there will be conversation after this, is that we need, what I learned from previous research is that, in our relationships, we need to have multiple conversations across life stages. For instance, if you are wanting to commit to a relationship, it is important to share your story of money and hear your partner's story of money so that you know whether you're on the same page or not. And a lot of misunderstandings happen because often the woman has seen her mother manage money or not manage money. And most often she wants to be a little bit more independent and more managing of her own money than perhaps her mother was. The man has seen his father control money and thinks that it has worked well for his parents and it will work well for him. But the gender of money is changing in India and it's changing in most parts of the world and particularly in the diaspora. So it is important to share your story of money. And if your story of money is very different, then you have to work out ways how you can keep communicating so that there are no misunderstandings. Abuse is something different, but misunderstandings can be avoided and depends upon the kind of money management and control you have. Now, in India, when another colleague and we were studying money in the joint family in India, what we found is very often the irregular dole, something that's not part of money management classifications in the West. Even now, sometimes I meet young men and they say, "What's the problem? Every time she asks for money, I give it to her." Now, this is something very difficult because the man has, of course, usually never had the experience of asking for money. So I asked him, I said, "Have you ever asked for money?" Women go through lots of ways of talking and not talking of money to prevent themselves from asking for money. Often, a friend says her mother was so used to sort of hiding a little bit of money, wrapped up in a piece of cloth in a cupboard or in a trunk or something, that even after her husband died, my friend's father died, the mother had inherited everything. And she still kept hiding this money. And her daughter said, "BG, all the money is yours." And she said, "I'm just used to doing this." Yeah. In Australia, for instance, when you have children, that's when a lot of problems happen because women most often stop paid work or, reduce it. And the conflict is that they've been used to having their own money. and suddenly all there is joint money, but no personal money. But if you can discuss the emotions around money, then, like another person said, the husband just went to the bank and made sure that every month a certain amount of money went into her personal account. Yeah. Talking to children about money is, at least the Australian research is showing, that about 1/3 of the parents are very uncomfortable talking about money with their children. They either don't know how to talk about it or they feel they don't know enough. So they are hoping that the school will do it. But the school also often fails because the teachers are also not that comfortable talking about money. And it also fails because they are not necessarily reflecting the lived experience of all the students in the class. For instance, giving and receiving money, giving money to children and receiving money from children, it's something that in India, we see as morality, yeah. But in Western societies, in high income countries, parents will give money, but they're not at all comfortable with receiving money. So that's a very, very major difference in the cultures of money. And then as you age, how money and gender and aging happens. And then a lot of the conversations are about inheritance, how we should give equal. It's not a matter of need, it's seen as an emotional document that you do not want to ruin lives from the grave, they say. Yeah. So, what is lacking in financial education and capability programs that I have seen in Australia? As I said, it's only recently I realized that I needed to go to that kind of literature
Madam,
and go to those professionals.
Madam, I'm
So,
sorry. Actually, you know the time limitation. Please.
all right. So, anyway, this is you can see over here that the culture stuff actually is a very big market phenomena, yeah? And India received the highest at 120 billion in 2023. So really what we want to do is develop collaborative relationships, yeah? And we need to be part of this translation of money into financial education, which in turn will lead to more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And sorry for my
No, that's fine. Thank you so much.
Now, may I request second invited speaker of the session, Professor Bartholomew Dean. I think spelling is correct or wrong, I don't know. Sir, are you there? Professor Dean? Huh?
Yes, I am. Pardon me for the.
Professor Dean is a professor of anthropology and director of public anthropology programs in the Institute of Policy and Social Research at the University of Kansas, United States. He is also director of anthropology at the Museo Regional Universidad Nacional de San Martin, Puerto San Martin, Peru. He also serves as a research associate with Laboratory of Biological Anthropology. He also leads the anthropology section of the regional museum. In addition to his scholarly books, Professor Dean has contributed numerous articles and chapters to the field of anthropology, compiling them to the series of the textbook titled Anthropological Illumination of the Varieties of Human Experience. He also serves as pro bono expert witness on human rights cases both in USA and internationally. Professor Dean has given direction of a major public health initiative in Peruvian Amazonia. So, Sir, you know that we have time constraint and time given to all the invited speaker is, I think, 10 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you ever so much, everybody, and I will try to keep my comments brief. It's a great honor to be with everybody. And again, I hope you have a lovely day and a fantastic conference. Hopefully this works. Yeah, yes, indeed. So if you're interested more about this topic, please send me an email. I'd be more than happy to send you a free PDF copy of the entire text, which is, as you can see, entitled The End of the Future, Trauma, Memory, and Reconciliation in Peruvian Amazonia. And today, very briefly, I'm just going to be talking a bit about the work that is covered and looking at the relationship between silence and voice and trauma and how they're embedded in the stories that individuals tell each other in a region of the world called the Huallaga Valley, which is the epicenter for the production of cocaine. During many years of research, the interviews I collected reveal silence, certainly voluntary as well as coerced. And I think that the silence in and of itself is a very powerful medium to navigate the trauma. I find also that the lack of speech, silence in and of itself is a form of communication. And that communication, that form is a way of conveying the struggles, unresolved emotions, internalized fears. One notes certainly this in spoken words, in gestures, but importantly in emotional silences, in what one does not say. So again, you can see what some individuals have talked about. This text is about the defeat of a rebel group called the MRTA, and it covers the victims as well as the perpetrators and everybody in between. And it covers a very harrowing, I think, epic in Peruvian history, roughly from 1985 to 2005. And my effort was to try to figure out how people remember, how did they come to terms, how did they integrate this very turbulent part of their history. So it deals with, I think, in many respects, ineffable traumas that we can't articulate. So again, investigating, interrogating aspects of silence, memory, and nonverbal communications, certainly as modes for survival as well as resistance. The Civil War that occurred between 85 and 2005 was truly the most violent in Republican, post-Republican history, 200 years of history. Well over 500,000 people ended up being internally displaced, and perhaps as many as 100,000. We don't quite know. But needless to say, it's deeply scarred the country. And the group that I've worked with extensively, the MRTA, which I won't go into given the time constraints, the locals responded, I think, in a variety of ways. Some enthusiastically, given that they were providing social services that the government wasn't. Others were not very happy at all, given the coerciveness, the violence, extortion, the war taxes. Needless to say, people suffered from the violence and the militarization of everyday life that one saw. So with any war, we certainly see human rights and the cost that's associated with that. And in a more localized, the groups, the Shining Path, MRTA, began targeting marginalized communities. We see instances certainly of crimes against humanity, war crimes. They weren't random acts of violence or deliberate strategies to impose, effort to impose rigid social moral orders. Individuals that were targeted, sex workers, members of the LGBT community, shamans, among others, that didn't fit into the new perceived worldview. So my part of my work is looking at this intricate balance between speech, when to speak, and when to be silent, when to be mute. And as I said before, to what extent is this a tool of survival, a tool of resistance? One can oppose looking at the informant, the soplan, to being silent, the refusal to articulate. And for certainly community members, those who speak represent the anxieties, I think, that we see across humanity. Associations of speech and secrecy. Speaking embodies the risk, I think, inherent in communication. An informant could certainly weaponize the words against the community, converting languages into act of violence, as we see in an Austinian sense of speech act theory, where utterances are not just mere conveyances of information, but have real world consequences. So the soplan represents betrayal through speech, one who traffics information, often under coercion of threat, and certainly to ensure personal survival, but at the expense of community trust, solidarity. One contrasts this with silent speech, symbolized in many respects through the refusal to speak, as I call it, the mute resistance. But this paradoxically leads in many respects to fatal consequences. So in my work, I've argued that these are complementary modes, are not oppositional by any respects in this very complex world of violence, pitting a number of rebel groups, civil patrols, the armed forces in the Peruvian state. And so one begins to think systematically about inner voice, these dialogues that one tells in oneself. What is the tension between speech and silence? And as I began, I think, in my brief comments, saying that silence can carry as much, if not more, meaning than words. And certainly this can be the case in conflict zones. I find these two forces to be complementary forms of communication, reflecting survival strategies. On the one hand, the soplan uses speech to betray. Those who practice silence use it to protect themselves and their communities. But both forms of communication arose, certainly in this area, from the same context of profound fear and violence, where individuals had to carefully navigate their roles within a system of shifting loyalties and mortal dangers. Thank you ever so much. And again, please send me an email, and I'd love to engage and send any copies of my work. And love to hear from you.
Working for a time being because the internet stopped, so the time being is working.
Thank you ever so much.
अब बोल दिए सर से कि वो कर लेगा
So we can conclude. So we are audible to you?
Yes. Yes, sir. Audible.
हाँ जी आवाज आ रही है सर इसकी जरूरत नहीं है छेड़ने की वो हमारा चल रहा है नेट
Yes, you are audible.
So you can conclude now. Next.
Sir, are you there?
I'm here.
Sir, maybe we missed your last minute presentation, actually, last 1 minute or something.
Oh, did something break out? I'm sorry.
No. That's because of our internet problem here, not because of your internet problem or something.
I understand. So I suddenly cut out. I can repeat. I'm not sure what point I cut out. I was, in essence, giving my email and encouraging individuals to be in touch with me. I'd love to share a copy of my works and send a PDF copy.
Okay, sir. That's fine. So nice to hear something. Uh, Next, we have Professor Avik Ghosh online. Avik, are you there?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay. Professor Avik Ghosh is a professor at the Department of Anthropology in Punjab University, Chandigarh. He is a highly regarded anthropologist with significant contribution to the field. He is a life member of several prestigious organizations, including our organization, Indian Sociological Society and Society for Medical Anthropology. Uh, he has held leadership roles such as governing body members of the Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists, INCA, and served as editor for key journals like the Indian Journal of Anthropology. His work on the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment earned him global recognition, winning the Jayed International Prize in 2006 with extensive fieldwork across India from tribal research to archaeological studies. Dr. Ghosh is a respected academic and mentor deeply committed to advancing anthropology through both research and teaching. So, Avigda, now it's yours, and you know the time limit is 10 minutes for the invited speaker. Avigda, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I will begin with the idea that anthropologists have to study how societies look at the colors that they see. I think this is a forgotten part of anthropological studies. Berlin and Kay have done a lot of work on collating the work of others before that period. But beyond that, very few people, very few anthropologists have been looking at the colors that are visualized and perceived by individuals. Now, anthropological studies on vision had begun with ideas about people from how different people look at different cultures look at color. So, color has become an important part of the worldview of different societies, and so the first time somebody put together an idea that language was important for this issue was Wilhelm von Humboldt, and later it was put on a sound footing to the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Now, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis at this point has been said to be something that looks at language, which is like a system, and as a system, it has rare or very little contact with other systems around it. So, this paper looks at ideas behind this concept through fieldwork among the Oraon of Chotanagpur and how their culture looks at uh, the world and its conceptualizations that shape it. So, if we look at the perception of uh, color among the Oraon, we see that it feeds upon each other. The perception, conception, and worldviews feed upon each other. And Tehon in 1905 to 1907 found that Oraons have only three words for color of the rainbow: white, red, and black. And he suggests that the red mud comes from the earth, the white from chalk, and the black from charcoal. However, it does not mean that all Oraons have this outlook. They have a multiplicity of worldviews, some of which may be contradicting each other. These worldviews need necessarily to be systems of thought. So let's take a look at how they look at color. The three kinds of soils in Navadi that we see are in the Nagpuriya dialect. And if we look at them, then we see that you have charka mati, which is the white soil. Then you have other kinds. Uh, there's red soil or lalka mati, panjri mati. Then you have, this is very much used during Sarhul. In fact, during Holi and Sarhul, they do not use other colors than this uh, vermilion or sindoor, which they utilize, may be of many colors in the community. It may be red, violet, purple, or orange in color. So, Oraons are aware of different kinds of color, yet they are this the language of color is used differently in different contexts, and this is what we must look at. The black soil is dug out from a spot near the river, near the village, and it can be coke or coal deposits. It's called karyamati. So the color symbolism also includes the existence of a single word for a complex of colors. Now, this is amazing because we don't use them like that in our own cultures. We mix different terms for each color when we want to talk of a mix of colors. So, if we look at a reddish colored cock, now let's get to a bit of looking at poultry. Uh, a reddish colored cock with a red crest, red feathers on parts of its back, and the rest of the back being black with a few white feathers, the underside being white and the neck being of glinting mix, including green along with red, black, and white, and seemingly a bit of turquoise, is known as Rangva Murga in Nagpurian Rangve Sim. When I asked them what is this color, they explained to me that I would probably call it red. Now, this color, you will see the color on the screen. It was then explained to me that I would probably call it red, but it is never seen on a hen. And the black hen, which is never a cock, is known as a karya munda or hendasi. This is the white cock or hen is called charka murga or murgi and pundi sin. So they are used for sacrificial purposes as well as for cockfighting. Here's the charka murga. And then you have the dirty brownish hen called goli murgi. It is also called goli sin. The four colored cock with white and black dominating are the chinjra murga. And the cock with a mixed black and white color with a predominance of black is known as mala. So the cock or hen with more white on its speckled body than black is known as Gyuha Murga or Murgi. Now they kept translating these languages for me, and this kind of cockfighting is present widely in the local markets of Ranchi, Gumla, and Lohardaga districts, among others. So these local markets meet twice in a week, but at shorter and longer distances, people decide to go to some markets only, depending on what they need and how they need it. And in these markets, at the backsides or in certain culverts or other areas which are a little protected from casual view, you will find that some people are gathering together, and eventually there is a cockfight happening in that area. This is the Giva color. So there is a leakage between colors. All Oraons everywhere in these three districts use the same name for the colors of the cocks and hen. And this is probably the result of their interaction in the marketplace, where they have to interact to buy and sell cocks as well as during cockfighting and other things. there are also cultural injunctions relating to colors. So, a particular color is used for sacrificing to a particular god. I'm not giving all those details here because it would take too much time. When Oraons talk to me, they would translate from the Nagpuriya and they would mix two or more colors. So, when they say you would call it red, or when they said more of a whitish color, uh, this is how they describe things. But it does not mean that these are the actual colors only available on that cock or hen. It could be that the cock or hen has many more colors, and the other colors may be predominant, at least for me. But for them, that color that they describe is probably predominant in their mind and in their eye. So, what we see here is that they are actually linking up between two or more languages, and that's across systems of languages. And therefore, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis needs a modification. It needs to admit that there is a leakage between languages, there is a leakage of ideas and concepts, and therefore they can do many things by looking at uh, uh, these concepts. This is exactly why I didn't want to um, start the video, because it immediately puts pressure on the system. Okay, this is the Rangva color that I was telling you about. So we go from sensation through conception, perception to the symbol and then the worldview. And the symbol puts the bits and pieces of sensory data.
Please.
Yeah, within 2 minutes. It is the rule, the meta narrative on the basis of which these concepts arise, as you can see. So, in one study, it was shown that bilingual speakers use translation English colors, and some studies are also showing that it also affects color choices. Similarly, such color choices also affect the food choices. So, you have also studies which show that bilingual usages of symbols in the mind do occur. There's a study by Yan Chao in 2021, and they are used for ritual purposes also. So, as a conclusion, then finally, any system of meaning, a worldview, gives a certain view of the world. It gives a certain aspect to the world. It creates and recreates this world. It highlights certain parts and hides others. Hence, all seen has a symbolic background from the gestures that the Oraons, as well as their facial expressions that I gradually learned to read, and the range of implicitly accepted behavior that I learned to perform. They're all modes of uh, visualizing in a world that has been taken for granted by the Oraon cultures. They're only strange and unlearned from my own viewpoint only. When the Oraons, when the Oraon informant tells me you would call it red, he's in the process of understanding to some extent these limitations. He then tries to overcome these limitations by transcending his own worldview to another, which he thinks I would understand better. He translates the language of what he wishes to communicate from one worldview to another. In other words, between these worldviews, the linkages are fuzzy, with shades of one to the other instead of forming boundaries. It is the same with the perception of color among the Oraons. Uh, well, in maximum areas of maximum use like markets, they are utilized as a sort of duality or multiplicity. In other areas where such combinations and definitions are not required, these color categories may be simply used by the so-called mainstream cultures. Perhaps these areas of maximum use uh, vary off into multiplicity of shades of green that a farmer learns to know in order to find out whether they are healthy or not, for example. So this is what I wanted to say, that there is this leakage from one to the other. Thank
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation and very insightful, deliberations. So now we are moving to the another very intellectual and learned speaker. So thank you so much, Professor Ghosh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we are moving to the another session. So very important lecture talk by Professor Nilika Mehrotra, who is a center from the Center for Studies of Social Sciences, School of Social Sciences, JNU. So she is the professor at this center at JNU, and she specializes in social anthropology with a focus of gender, disability studies, and tribal development. With more than 34 years, yeah, with more than 34 years of experience in teaching and research, she made significant contributions to the field of disability and gender studies, particularly in relation to the intersections of disability, gender, and caste in India. Professor Mehrotra has done in-depth studies on disabled women in rural Haryana and evaluations of disability programs in India, supported by both government and academic institutions. She also has authored several influential works, including Disability, Gender and State Policy, and Disability Studies in India. Professor Nilika has served as the editor of the Indian Anthropologist and remain actively engaged in international collaborations, contributing to the advancement of the studies on marginalized communities. So she is here physically present. So welcome, ma'am, with the clapping. Thank you so much, Professor, and you can come to them. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a very generous introduction, and I thank the organizers for inviting me to this important seminar. Since the session is on interdisciplinary forays in anthropology, so I'll limit that to, how in my own work I have tried to utilize interdisciplinary, perspectives. Anthropology has always been interdisciplinary, right from the beginning. If you see, all the major scholars have come from disciplines that were not their own. So from psychology to physics to mathematics to language, we have seen how Malinowski, Franz Boas, Clifford Geertz and many others, they came from other disciplines, and they try to bring the insights from other disciplines to theorizing in anthropology. So when I was trying to do research in mid-80s in anthropology department at Delhi University, I found that there were very few studies available on women in mid-80s, and very, very little research literature I could find. And so a larger focus was remained on rural and tribal communities. But in my work, I tried to look at women, movements, organizations, and in urban spaces, especially in Delhi, and their implications. So in the anthropological literature, there was very little that I could borrow from. So, for instance, in the study of movements, there was literature about tribal movements, peasant movements, but very little literature on movements in the urban areas. So, sociology, political science became the way through which, I could draw insights to understand the women's movement. But I had to largely depend on concepts evolved in feminist studies, in women's studies in the global north. Why? Because one, anthropology, like almost all other disciplines, remained very male-centric, androcentric, and most of the theories, the way they came from the global north, white, middle class men going to the field, except with exceptions of some like Margaret Mead and Ruth Benedict, who we can see as ancestresses of gender studies in anthropology. But the larger picture was a focus on the functional perspectives in anthropology, and that came from a very male-centric theorization. So largely what I was doing was to borrow from feminist studies and feminism as such, because this was also one of those new developments in anthropology and other disciplines, where the connection between the movements and academic studies was being made. So, and the issue that knowledge and power are connected, Foucauldian knowledge was also, post-structuralist perspectives were becoming very, very common in the West. But in Indian departments, even today, I don't see much postmodernist or post-structuralist, as well as feminist perspectives coming in. But in my own work, I had to actually borrow from there. So since my work was in urban areas and on movements, I took from sociology, which focused a great deal on organizations. I took from political science in terms of civil society organizations, because anthropologists hardly, defined what civil society was. But I was looking at civil society groups and women's groups. So I think borrowing from there was important, and it had very serious methodological implications as well. The notion of ethnography, so popular in anthropology and now, going to other disciplines, did not really talk much about, the challenges in the urban areas. So what is it to work with women who were more powerful than you, more articulate, more, so anthropology was all about working in fields, especially tribal areas or rural or communities in the urban slums, etc., where you had a power imbalance. Here in my own work, I was at the receiving end, and my informants were the ones who were more knowledgeable than me in many ways. So I think it was very important that I required to reorient my methodological and strategic perspectives in doing research on women and gender. But in last 2 decades or so, I also came to disability, the study of disability, through the feminist and women's studies, perspective. And I found that in anthropology, again, the focus was largely on the normal, the idea of the normal. And it is very Durkheimian, normal and pathological is very Durkheimian, and which completely, kind of overpowers our perspective in anthropology. So when I was looking at disability, I could only look at psychology or rehabilitation studies or social work, where disability was being studied as disabled people were studied as subjects. But in terms of anthropological perspectives, I also found that a large section of anthropology, especially biological anthropology, the way it was influenced by the notion of eugenics, rather also contributing to eugenics in some sense. So even today in the departments of anthropology, I find, experiments and practicals where we are told that, anthropologists could do genetic counseling, and a disabled fetus could be, asked to be aborted. And whereas, disability studies scholars talk about the value of life, and Indian situation is different because we have a law also. We have a law which allows abortion on that basis, on genetic basis. But all over the world, globally, we know that it is not allowed, and such kind of genetic counseling is illegal, and it is against the ethical principles. So my foray into disability not only opens up the question about normal and pathological, or normal and abnormal, but also what normal bodies are all about. And it brings in the gender questions as well, where we look at queer bodies, we look at transgender bodies, LGBTQ people who are neither fitted as male or female. And when we have a Supreme Court judgment of treating transgender people as as a legal category. Nevertheless, how anthropology has contributed to the binary of male and female is something that my work on disability has tried to, challenge. So, since I don't have time and I would like to conclude here, what I have learned from other disciplines, especially since I am located in a department of sociology, which gives out a degree in sociology, it is Center for the Study of Social Systems, where macro aspects are emphasized a great deal, whereas anthropologists have always focused on the micro. So how to connect micro with macro? So when I was studying women's studies or disability studies, how do I connect to the global discourses while looking at a local situation and also looking at meso situation? And does anthropological vocabulary help me to actually deal with all conceptual and methodological issues? But one thing I would like to definitely say, and I'm very committed to anthropology and loyal to anthropology, it gives me my bread and butter, that anthropology probably is the only discipline which is so open-ended and porous, which actually allows you to take in from other disciplines, whereas other disciplines are much more, I think, tight, and they have very clear boundaries, whereas anthropology has actually provided me with such a great space to experiment on my subjects. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Nilika, because I believe that you are in sociology and I am from social work also. So I can relate that what wonderful work you are doing, and definitely the points which you talked about here are very important. Either it is LGBTQ or disability, the perspective of anthropology is very important. So, and that's why these conferences are very important, that in these sessions you get to know the work of various people, and in this manner. So thank you so much for coming and giving your very important lecture on this. Now moving to the another important aspect. So uh, I would like to invite Dr. Sudeep Basu, who's associate professor at Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, for his paper presentation on rethinking sanitary work in India, a social critique of manual scavenging. So, welcome, Dr. Steve. And you have 5 minutes. So, we have time constraint, and every time we have time constraint, everywhere. So please maintain the time.
Um, okay, I'm delighted to be at Amity University for this National Anthropology Conference. I'll stick to the time for that. I think I'll just run through certain things. I just want to argue a few points that I would like to put forward. Is that in some ways, when we are trying to critique manual scavenging, it is inevitably also a critique of caste. So I would just want to bring in that. The organizing principle of caste itself, and borrowing from Louis Dumont, is on the axis of purity and pollution, which immediately excludes from the purview a certain class of people which I've mentioned here as the manual scavengers. But where exactly lies the problem? So if we push forward the Dumontian view of purity and pollution, we do not really address the question, why does manual scavenging persist? And at the same time, if we take a view from below, which is when we take the thematic of access to resources, even then we don't really address the problem of the persistence of manual scavenging. So we have several tracts that, I have identified. I've not done any particular field work or ethnography. It's just a theoretical reflection of the works that have been done before. Is that on the one hand, you have stringent laws coming up. You have the Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrines Prohibition Act of 1993. You have the old, the PCRA, the Protection of Civil Rights Act, protecting the lot of the untouchables from atrocities. You have many kinds of government programs there, but yet, even with stringent laws, the reprehensible practice does not go away. And the problem therefore lies, and this is where I've identified, is that on the one hand, the commitment, it could be both a moral and an ethical commitment towards the total eradication of manual scavenging, which is in a way a moral commitment. The other is a more practical commitment of rehabilitating the manual scavengers. And there have been many attempts to rehabilitate the lot of manual scavengers by looking for alternative employment, by providing loans, by also, the disbursal of loans is one, and also training of as part of the retrenchment process. Despite all these kinds of governmental welfare activities, we find that on the one hand, if the commitment goes towards rehabilitation, it defeats the purpose of eradication. So more and more one is trying to rehabilitate. The end result is that one is just not able to then eradicate this whole practice that sort of exists. And I think what the real reason perhaps, and there are practically all kinds of reasons there, is the way in which this whole practice itself has become bureaucratized. The bureaucratization or the governmentalization of this whole practice and the paraphernalia which exists in order to rehabilitate and ameliorate or even eradicate this problem. And what governmentalization and bureaucratization of this does is that it immediately connects in a sort of vicious way a certain kind of governmental power with social power. Because on the one hand, in order to sustain governmental power, you require the services of this section of society. So on the one hand, the governmental power wants to, initiate certain welfare measures. But on the other hand, even something like technology and the humanization of work doesn't fulfill the problem, because in order to even enact and realize the humanization of work, you need to also dehumanize. And it's a peculiar paradox, and it's a sort of a bind in which our policies and actions sort of has to face up to. And I think this this is also the paradox of social policy in India, where on the one hand, it has to contend with hierarchies, and it's just not about hierarchies. It is about how social power itself gets utilized by those in, those at the top, and by utilizing social power and governmental, governmental policies in order to maintain a certain kind of status quo. So on the one hand, you require perhaps something like sanitation, but if sanitation itself becomes a mode of social control, then it immediately depoliticizes and dehistoricizes the whole problem of manual scavenging. So this whole idea of sanitization and how that is linked with the old idea of ritual purity, in some ways, it's a certain kind of sanitization could be also thought of as a certain kind of secularization of ritual purity. And this very secularization of ritual purity itself can actually dehumanize and depoliticize. So, yes, and so I'll just kind of conclude here. And I think this whole discourse around manual scavenging, its undying nature, is about the way in which the social and the governmental and also the market, which I think one needs to elaborate, how this whole technology of power itself prevents this kind of lofty goal towards eradication from ever happening. So I think I'm ending in a bleak note, but that's how it is.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh. Dr. Basu. And I think your study definitely, it's a wonderful work. But I think if we can have some empirical and other things that can add on in that, but I think it's a need of the hour. So moving further, I would like to invite Ms. Lipika Nath, who is a research scholar at Delhi University in Department of Anthropology. And she is speaking on indigenizing tourism, problems and prospects among the Tamangs of Darjeeling, West Bengal.
Good morning to all of you, and my warm greetings to all of you. Myself, Lipika Nath, I'm a PhD research scholar from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. And here today I will be talking about indigenizing tourism. So basically, it's a study among the Tamangs. So Tamangs are one of the semi-Mongolian community who are living in the various parts of Darjeeling and Kalimpong districts of West Bengal, and also in the Sikkim Himalaya region. Again, can you make it full screen? No, it can be made in screen. Oh. Okay, leave it, no issue. How to do next? Take it. And you scroll it. Yeah. Okay. So they are one of the semi-Mongolian tribal community of Darjeeling, and they have their own distinct language, culture, ritual practices, own political organizations, which I'm not going into details, but they are one of the Nepali-speaking community of the state of West Bengal. However, there has been several political conflicts regarding their status of being caste or tribal. So basically, earlier they were thought as one of the Nepali caste communities, but they had a long political struggle to identify themselves as a distinct tribal community in the state, and now in 2002 they got their tribal identity. So in this particular study, what I'm trying to understand that probably you all might know that Darjeeling is one of the major hill destination for the tourism purposes. However, the main city of Darjeeling is nowadays very crowded and rushed, and the pollutions are also increasing in the hills. So because of that, people are going for the offbeat destinations. And here comes the incorporation of these people that their eco-cultural heritage for the tourism purposes. And I'm trying to understand through this paper is that what are the different possible opportunities of tourism in their place and among the people, and what are the challenges they are facing, and what are the coping mechanisms, and trying to draw a participatory model that how they are making the tourism more traditional. So I did my field work in 10 of the villages of Darjeeling. So I'm not going into this. It's an ethnographic field work, as usual, classic field work. So what is important here is that the first thing is that what are the parameters that they are incorporating into tourism. That is starting from their language, their folk culture, their diet practices, their huts. I will just show you the traditional huts, and they are making into homestays. They are utilizing their knowledge of ethnomedicines for the treating purposes. Not only that, the place is also becoming a very center of religious tourism, because of the Buddhism. They follow Buddhism. However, they still follow the shamanistic practices as well. So some hidden practices and those faith healing that we say is also being proposed there. So as you can see, these are the traditional Tamang huts, once being very, being thought of that poor and poor condition. But now what they are doing, they are making these huts more stronger. They are building in such format and presenting to the people as homestays. So it's a very interesting story, but I can, if anyone interested, can ask me. Another one is living museum. So here, what I'm trying to understand is how the tourism is not only promoting the economic opportunities in the place, but also it is an opportunity for the community itself to preserve their own traditional, material heritage. And that comes to the idea of living museum, that the monasteries and also the huts are becoming a place for museum, place for showcasing their traditionality. So there are some challenges which I have tried to understand and trace throughout my study, that what are the challenges to the place itself, what are the challenges for the community, and what are the challenges for the visitors who are going there and visit the people. And ultimately, this is a 3R model of cultural survival, which I am trying to build up. The idea is relocating, reorganizing, and representing. So what is that is, when we are talking about preserving and showcasing it for the people, for the benefit of themselves and also for the others, it's about that they have to go back to the roots, that where are those knowledges are being built up, and what are the past materials that they have to recollect and present. So relocating and then organizing into a particular setup, either into the homestay model or in a living museum setup, and also to represent, not to misinterpret the knowledge, not to misinterpret the traditional, belief systems and all. So they have to take care of certain things. So thank you so much for patience listening. I can now go to
Thank you so much. And I think it was very interesting actually, because India has a lot of places which are needs to be researched, and from tourism perspective it was very important. So without wasting time, we are moving quickly to the Mr. Ayush Kushwaha, who's a research scholar in Center for Studies of Social Systems in JNU, and he will present his paper on forced conception and impact on maternal health, a study of the women's bodies and agency in Jhabua, Madhya Pradesh. And I think Professor Malhotra is a scholar. Yeah.
You can start speaking, okay?
Good morning, everyone. So the title of my today's presentation is Post-Conception and its Impact on Maternal Health, a study of women's bodies and agency in Jhabua, Madhya Pradesh. In the sanctuary of my body, within the layers of my womb, a sacred potential, inherent power, a voice from my core is silenced, its story twisted, manipulated, coerced, or erased. So, reproductive coercion is basically an umbrella term which can include birth control sabotage, pregnancy coercion, post conception, etc. But in it, necessarily a pattern of behavior is drawn where one partner seeks to control or manipulate the reproductive choices of the another partner. So reproduction done over and over again in order to have desirable number of sons is known by various terms by various scholars such as DSB, which is differential stopping behavior, son targeting fertility behavior, asymmetric procreation behavior, etc. So in this paper, I have dealt with the specific aspect of reproductive coercion, that is the concept of forced conception, newly devised to study the pressure created on a woman to conceive till the time she gives birth to at least one male child. So the term forced conception entails in itself the pain, agony, and suffering of women who knew their bodies being experimented and treated as a reproduction machine for producing the desirable number of sons. Because women with no or small number of sons are more likely to continue the childbearing as compared to others. Because parity progression at any given parity, the last born child of a woman who has stopped childbearing was more likely to be a son than a daughter. I will not focus much on the data and methodology in this presentation, but yeah, the study was conducted in Jhabua and two segments were applied. One was quantitative, which was followed by the qualitative segment. And the ideal number of children was estimated on the basis of total living children at the time of the interview, plus the additional children desired by the couple and the number of children who had died or the fetuses that had been miscarried, because no direct question was being posed about the ideal number of children. The basic major findings in terms of maternal deaths reported blood loss, anemia, sepsis, eclampsia, and obstructed labor. But what I would like to highlight here are the discourses around conception and childbirth, because it's essential to note that the decisions about the desirable number of sons and whether to continue or stop childbearing are typically made at the family level, emphasizing the family level effects of DSB, which is differential stopping behavior. So one of my key respondents, Sarla, she was in her 30s. She described the demands from her husband and in-laws to have more children as costly due to having 3 more children than she desired, resulting in a total of half dozen. So she had 6 children and her 6 children consisted of 5 elder daughters and the youngest son. After taking note of the fact that she currently has 6 children, one can easily be misled by the family size, because the current number of living children can significantly differ from the number of times fetus has been conceived. So she explains that her firstborn child was a daughter, then they went for the second one, and luckily it was the male child, but he couldn't survive because of pneumonia and he passed away. Then her second, third, and fourth daughters were consecutively born in desire of a male child. And finally, Arnav, which was her youngest son, the youngest child, he was born and she thought that, she had made her family happy. But that was not the case, because her father-in-law said that there should be at least 2 sons in my family. So her husband tried to convince her to conceive for the 8th time, imagine. So it has become clear from these cases that, the current family pattern is not capable of providing the full picture of conception, which includes miscarriages in the early phase, fetuses lost, and the infant deaths. And this could only be gauged through the deep engagement with the female interlocutors about their reproductive journey so far. In terms of maternal health outcomes, there was short stature and, average gestational weight was less. But I would like to highlight that many women in my sample were simultaneously pregnant and they were breastfeeding, resulting into the nutrient requirement deficiency while comparing with the established recommendations by WHO and ICMR. And the narratives surrounding the pregnancy and childbirth were not very enthusiastic. So the women would focus on morning sickness, enduring prolonged episodes of nausea and vomiting. They say that I feel nothing excited about being pregnant because I already have many children. They would highlight the experiences of swollen legs, blurred vision, sleep disorders, etc. I would jump on to the conclusion, and I would like to highlight that the examination of son preference is framed within the intersections of gender, family, power, and social relations. So it constitutes a whole of, political economy rather than just a mere cultural phenomena. So even in the contemporary times, a woman's inability to reproduce sons lands her in trouble because in the regulatory procedures for pregnancy, it is the maternal body which is being scrutinized and controlled and also blamed and shamed when the results are not desirable. So the numerical data, I feel, should be interpreted very cautiously for the populations like the women of Jhabua, who face the triple burden of providing a son, feeding an infant, and carrying a fetus at the same time. So when we talk about the holistic definition of health, prioritizing experiences over numbers is very essential because the current health status should be situated within the context of embodied experiences. Because pregnancy is not just simply about giving birth to a child, it's a lot more than that, right? From conceiving to carrying the fetus for the 9 months, facing hormonal imbalances with ambivalent feelings, you are clueless about what is happening with your body, and all others are celebrating that imbalance, dealing with the physical bodily changes to labor pain, etc. So yes, I would like to end here. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ayush. So good work. And I think these kind of studies are very important. So now we are moving very quickly to Mr. Nikhil Thakur, who is a research scholar at Department of Anthropology at Amity Institute of Social Sciences, Noida. And he will present his work on roots of sustainability, herbal knowledge of and food practices of Gaddi tribe. Nikhil, you can start in the meantime. Yeah.
You can start.
Please continue.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nikhil Thakur, and I'll be presenting my research on the topic Roots of Culture, Traditional Knowledge, and Food Practices in the Gaddi tribe. In the introduction, I would like to say Gaddis, a semi-nomadic and agro-pastoral community living in the Kangra and Chamba districts of Himachal Pradesh. Primarily, they are shepherds. They are semi-nomadic shepherds living in both Kangra and Chamba districts of Himachal Pradesh. The methodology that we have opted to conduct this research is the focus group discussion method. In total, sample size was 120 divided into further groups. We have conducted multiple focus group discussions, and the findings are here. The study area was, we have conducted a study into multiple villages, which are Khaniara, Totarani, Rak, Ballara, Karnagri, and Jia. And all the villages are from Kangra district. Now, traditional knowledge and food practices. We'll work on three main concerns. The first, sustainable agriculture. Gaddis are more into crop rotation methods, intercropping, and composting to enhance the soil fertility. And pastoralism method. During the summer, they return to lower valleys in winters, avoiding overgrazing and allowing natural regression of pastures. Food preservation methods are very much, you can say, conserved. Drying, fermenting, and smoking of food is a preferential method in the Gaddi community. Now, here are the results of the focus group discussion. So we have, in total, we have documented 47 plants and animal products they are using in their daily lifestyle. And most of them are part of their food cycle. Neem and tulsi are very much common to everyone. Bichu booty, commonly known as nettle or ant in Himalayas. Buranj, pink rhododendron, dhuda, and kachnar. Karali we also say in local language. And the script that you see in the which we say local name is known as the Tankri, which is the script that Gadiali people use. These are the pictures that we have collected from the fieldwork. The first one is this is nettle, bichu booty, and they used to eat it like into different things. It's called saag, bichu booty ka saag, or you can say chutney of bichu booty. Kachnar, Buranj, and Dhuda. Now coming towards the animal products, honey and ghee are much common to everyone. Animal bones and horn. The powder is used as ointment for joint pain, inflammation. Animal horns are also used for evil eye protection. Animal fats and oils are also being used for a different kind of ailment treatment. The most common is pain relief. Bee wax. Bee wax is also used for ointment for soothing effects on skin, especially in the case of burn. These are the pictures. Animal horn and bee wax that they are using. Now coming to conclusion, I would like to conclude this presentation on the following notes. Traditional knowledge of Gaddi tribe is about nature is deep rooted into their culture. However, because of migration and modernization, this knowledge is on verge of extinction. Various anthropological methods could be used to document this traditional knowledge and preserve it for the future generations. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice, Nikhil. And I think on different topics in any conference, you find to know on various aspects. So, very quickly, we are moving to Mr. Sumit Dhaya, who is a research scholar at AISS Amity University. And his work is on evaluation of women's participation in Haryana's Panchayati Raj institutions, cost of transformative governance.
Good morning, all of you. My topic is evolution of the women participation in Haryana Panchayati Raj institution, the case of transforming governance. As introduction, as per the study of women empowerment, the growth through the education qualification for the candidate in the PRI in Haryana and the 50% reservation of the seats in Panchayati Raj institutions increase the participation of women in local self-governance. The research objectives to compare the participation of women in 2017 and the 2022 Panchayati Raj institution of Haryana to analyze the role of education in education empowering the women in Panchayati Raj institutions. My research, the qualitative research and the exploratory research and the explanatory research and the theoretical research. My field area of the research is the Haryana because the 2020 in 2015 and the 2020 the amendments are given by the state Haryana state government because it's in 2015 the elementary educations are compulsory for the candidature of the sarpanch and the panch, and then in 2022 the reservation policies made for the women to increase the reservation of women increased 20% or 50% as compared to the 30%, 33% in the 2020. And of my findings of the my research is the in 2017 the participation of women is 41% and the in 2022 the participation of women is increased as per the reservation policies introduced by the Haryana government in 2020. It is increased by the 49%. And the education is also main point to empower the women and the increase the participations in the Panchayati Raj institutions. As per my research, the 6 members of Sarpanch, women Sarpanch elected who pursued and did the PhD and the masters as compared to the 17. My recommendations, the other state also have to learn from Haryana how education empower women and how reservation policies increase the participation of women in Panchayati Raj institutions. The officials' guidelines have been issued to all the Panchayat officers not to allow the relatives to visit in Panchayat meetings by proxy. And the survey had made by the Ministry of this regard time to time. In the conclusion, the women representation in Haryana Panchayati Raj institution is satisfactory in the recent years. The women leads nearly 50% of panchayats in Haryana. It showed increased women participation in Panchayati Raj institutions. Education play a crucial role to aware the women about their rights, and the educated panchayats transform the village conditions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Daya. Now we are moving to Ms. Khushbu Thangjam, who is a research scholar at Manipur University, Manipur. Khushbu? Online.
Yes. Hello, sir. I'm here. I'm trying to share my screen here.
Khushbu, you can click on the share button, share the screen. Yeah, now it's visible. You can start.
Yes, yes. This is Khushbu Thangsam from Manipur University, research scholar and Department of MIMS, Manipur Institute of Management.
Miss
And
just to inform you that you have to present your this presentation in 4 minutes, please, because of the time is paucity. Thank you.
Sure, sir. And yeah, I'll directly skip my paper to the objective. The objective of my paper is to explore the potential of preserving Manipur's historical heritage as a catalyst for sustainable tourism development. And the paper also examines strategies such as community involvement, restoration of historical sites, promotion and traditional crafts, and environmental conservation to foster a sustainable tourism industry in the region. And role of heritage in sustainable tourism development. Yeah, tourists today seek authentic experience and a deeper understanding of the place they visit. For example, the Manipur classical dance and the indigenous Thangta martial art form are gaining international attention. If promoted effectively, this heritage element can create niche tourism market that are sustainable, as they are less likely to lead the mass tourism and associated environment and cultural damage. And coming to the analysis part, my methodology is for qualitative assessment. The paper explores the preservation of historical heritage and its impact on tourism through qualitative insight from existing data on heritage sites, cultural practice, and tourism strategy. And the table for the explanation for table 1 is the above table shows that the purpose of visit in Manipur are mostly visiting relatives and friends in the most common purpose, followed by holiday, business, and conference. If highlight that cultural tourism in Manipur is influenced by social and familial ties and Manipur's business related attraction. Example, conference also draw visitors, which could be a sign of state's growing business and cultural event sector. And the second table, this table is for reliability statistic, and it provides for different construct or categories of items using Cronbach alpha, which is a measure of internal consistency. And we all know that the value range for internal consistency is from 0 to 1, with higher value indicating better internal consistency. Typically, a value above 0.7 is considered acceptable for social science research. So natural features is 0.872, excellent internal consistency, meaning that the items related to the natural features are well correlated and reliable as a group. And the for infrastructure I got is 0.798. This shows good internal consistency, adequately correlate and reliable. And for the people, 0.775. This indicates acceptable internal consistency, meaning the item about people are sufficiently reliable, but not as strong as natural features and infrastructure, as I have already mentioned. And for availability of food, 0.883. Excellent internal consistency could be seen. That is very reliable and closely related. So, yeah, directly I'm coming to my conclusion that preserving Manipur's heritage is not only an obligation for future generation, but also a strategic pathway for sustainable tourism development. And by conserving the unique natural and natural assets, the state can create a niche tourism market that supports local economy and promotes sustainable development. However, this requires a collaborative effect from all stakeholders like government bodies, local communities, and the private sector to ensure that tourism in Manipur thrives while maintaining the integrity of the heritage. In long run, a well-preserved heritage will be the foundation upon which a vibrant, sustainable tourism industry can be built, benefiting both local and visitors alike. Thank you so much.
Presenter, Mr. Subhajit Sen, research scholar from Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal. Are you online there, Mr. Subhajit?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, so please share your presentation quickly, and you have 4 minutes to complete your presentation.
Okay.
And then the next, Mr. Sanjay Singh, be ready after that. And Nandita Devnath. Nandita, are you there?
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to discuss, we are discussing about the tourism and beyond. Actually, the effect of tourism on the Kalbilia community of Rajasthan. I'm quickly moving to the next slide. Actually, the community is a community is a nomadic community, is widely known for their snake charming practices and the traditional dance form. Uh, as because the Rajasthan is widely known for a very hotspot for the tourists, so it has a very huge impact. The community is very largely connected to the tourism for their livelihood practices, so it has a great impact on their life. And as we know, the only Rajasthan has a extreme condition of weather, so mostly the tourists visit over there on October to March, and the rest of the part of the session is very harsh for the community. So the three areas which I studied, the Jaipur, Jaisalmer, and Udaipur. Schedule questionnaire, in-depth interview, focus group discussion, and raw digital documentation was the basic methodology of the study. The main findings is that due to the tourism, they should be enrich their livelihood or the life. But unfortunately, tourism is the one of the main reason for their marginalization and discrimination. The community is widely known for their dance, but sometimes they harassed by the tourists and the other community members. As they are snake charmers and they are known widely to the local people, they are kind of untouchable people. They are abused verbally or sexually by the tourists, mainly the local people. Uh, and even they are after their dance programs in various places, they not even get paid by the authorities. Here we see the scenario of Jaipur in summer. The earning is different in winter. Winter is much more healthier in the terms of earning, but the summer is so. The same is in Jaisalmer, which is witness the desert part of the nation, and same here in Udaipur also. We can find the occupational diversities in winter as well as in summer because of the lack of work or the lack of source of occupation. They have to shift in different other works like sticking arms, storage labor, and all. But winter is kind of a resourceful for their work. It also affect on their families too, because the women who mainly for their marriages, they are unable to maintain their families, and sometimes they are involved with other persons in their occupation workplace because of their extra benefits, and gradually the family is broken due to this particular issue. And if I come from in a conclusion, I would like to say the different organization of the government should take the initiative, especially in summer. Uh, there are should be kind of special look in law and order matter, and the awareness program should be there, and there should be a basic child care unit for the children of this community.
Yeah, thank you, Subhajit. Good work you have presented. Now, very quickly, we are moving to Mr. Sanjay Singh. Are you there? Mr. Sanjay Singh? from Department of Sociology, University of Lucknow, Ms. Nandita Debnath, are you there? Ms. Nandita Debnath, you can unmute if you are there. We are not able to hear you. Nandita and Sanjay Singh, I think both of them are not here. If you can, anybody can call them or they are. It's okay. So moving further, we had this, very nice and very important research studies were presented today. And as this is an interdisciplinary perspective was discussed, so I can see all the invited lectures spoke very well on various important topics, and the presentations by the research scholars from various universities were also covering all the aspects. If I see the sustainable development goals, if I relate it, so all the aspects from sanitary napkins, so sanitation, and which covers the goal number 6. Actually, we also covered the food practices and sustainability. On the other hand, we had also seen the tourism paper and Panchayati Raj institutions we have covered in this session. And on the other hand, we also have seen the case study on the cotton cultivation, and on the other hand, socio-cultural aspects of the SDGs in Rajasthan. So all the presenters have done wonderful work, and there is a limitation obviously in conferences to present in a 5 minutes. But I appreciate that all the topics, research areas were very relevant and very important in current times. And I, along with the chair of the session, Professor Biswas, who is from West Bengal here, would like to congratulate everyone, and especially all the research work which you are doing. And I believe that this kind of work will definitely bring anthropology and life sciences into next level, because our veteran anthropologist is also here, sir is here, and all the people, those who have participated, especially the students and of Department of Anthropology, ISS, and other research scholars and faculty members. Thanks for your all support, and all the volunteers, those who have made this possible. So can we have one? Yeah. So this is the last thing. Now we have tea also waiting, and after that we will start the another session. And I request Nikhil if we can have with veteran and the one picture here along with the presenters, if possible, for the
Sure,
record
sir.
purpose.
After the facilitation session, we can have the group picture. Okay. So thank you everyone for this wonderful session. Now I would like to invite Professor Subir Vishwas to please facilitate Professor Nilika Mehrotra. Everyone, please come forward. Guys, everyone, please quickly.
Thank you so much. Now let's proceed for the because we are already running. सर दे देंगे
Now I would like to invite Professor Subir Vishwas and Professor Romi Dev to please facilitate at the co-chair of the day, Dr. Prashant. Thank you everyone. Now we can proceed for the tea session.
Yes, proceed. Thank you. You're right. You're right. Not really. Can you please help me with the pen drive? Yeah. I think you have to stop this. Where do you have? Just call the end.
This session is gerontology and geriatrics. The chair for this session is Dr. Rohit Kumar Kankar. Rohit Kumar is a deputy director of aged care programs at HelpAge India, where he has been dedicated to supporting the organization's helpline services. With over a decade of experience at HelpAge India, he plays a crucial role in assisting the elderly community. Dr. Rohit worked as an assistant at IIJT Computer Education Limited and as a logistics and warehouse assistant at Fab India Overseas Private Limited, where he also served as a quality controller. He began his career at New Direction Overseas Education. His extensive experience across various roles highlights his adaptability and commitment to the service. Sir, please. I'll take it. Sir, please start.
Hello. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all on this parallel session on gerontology and geriatrics. And we giving you the overview of the session that we have today. So, we have two invited talks, and which is followed by three paper presentations and three online presentations. We will start first with the invited talk. Basically, I would like to welcome Professor Barun Mukhopadhyay, who is a research director in Indian Anthropological Society, Kolkata. I would like to say a few words about him also, extending my warm welcome to him. And basically, he's an Indian anthropological. Is working in Indian Anthropological Society in Kolkata, and member of Forum for Medical Ethics Society in Kolkata. He's a retired professor of biological anthropology at Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata. Professor Mukhopadhyay's other major areas of research interest are the biocultural dimensions of aging, ethnobiology, and bioethics. He has conducted several research projects on these projects and has several publications in international and national journals, including the edited volumes. Professor Mukhopadhyay also serves as one of the associate editors of the journal called as Indian Anthropological Society. So, with these words, I welcome Professor Barun Mukhopadhyay, and we can start the proceedings for the session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I need to know first time for me. 10 minutes or 15 minutes? What's the time?
I think initially 15 minutes is okay.
15 minutes.
Have it, yeah.
But after 10 minutes, just give me a bell.
Sure.
So that I can stop at proper time, right?
Sure.
So you're starting 12:30. So we should have started at 12 noon, right? So we are late by half an hour. So I had to skip slides. Anyway, so this is about elderly health and care in India. Some observations. I have been researching like her for, with the elderly. And then, you see, issues on aging are multidimensional, as you know. And there are many disciplines which are, involved in studying elderly as a part of aging. And of course, you have population scientists, gerontologists, geriatricians, and anthropologists also are not lagging behind. They too remained interested in research on aging. Now, the purpose of anthropological research was mostly the biocultural dimensions determination of the aging process and in different communities. India definitely is becoming a sort of most populous country today, and it is in demographic transition, and research in human aging is being accomplished by different disciplines in much faster rate these days. And it is a priority area, no doubt. Now, what is the facts of population aging? Population aging is occurring at an increasing rate. Currently, 10% of Indian population is 60 years and above. India's elderly will suffer from higher rate of NCTs as the time passes. Elderly have less people to provide care at home because of many different social and economic reasons. And elderly will have to live less and less with their children. So these are certain things which are coming and which are increasing, as a matter of fact. So on the basis of that, the paper actually gives a broad outline on the elderly health aspects, both physical and mental, and also portray issues and dimensions of care. So far as the socio-demographic aspects are concerned, a large majority are rural. And of course, Indian elderly are women. And of course, 70% of them are women. And it was revealed that the rural areas, dependents are much more in the rural areas than in the urban area. A number of trends may explain these changes of living arrangements, including declining fertility, leaving fewer children available to care for older adults, and so on. And of course, there are intergenerational conflict that may also explain why elderly live in separate residences. Now, despite India's rapid economic growth, conditions, a majority of the older people remain poor in different states. Retirement, you see, when the retirement takes place, there will be a lowering of income, and it is obvious, and women are more likely to depend on others given lower literacy and higher incidence of widowhood. So basically, what is happening on the behavioral aspects of elderly is that they are becoming inactive, physically inactive, and of course, they have a high prevalence of risky behaviors of using tobacco and alcohol too. There are many morbidity profile studies among the elderly in different states of India, and they have a greater burden of diseases, and the rural people are being afflicted much more compared to urban. The elderly most frequently suffer from cardiovascular diseases, ailments, circulatory diseases, and cancers. Cardiovascular disease is a leading cause, and there are, of course, many other chronic diseases cross-cutting the systems, bodily systems. And of course, you have a high musculoskeletal problems, and also the problems of osteoporosis and sarcopenia. Now, there is one longitudinal study of aging in India that is called LASI, which has some waves. And the LASI result in 2021 says that 75% have one or more chronic diseases, 24% have at least one activity of living, 48% reported at least one instrumental activity of living limitation, 1 in 3 reported in having depressing symptoms, 32% reported low life satisfaction, and 18% being covered in health insurance. So the fact of the matter is that they are in adversities, both in economic terms and is also health terms. The specific morbidities to be afflicted in case of the elders, anemia, one of the most important ones, because that is something which is more or less prevalent in most of the states, and the range differs from one place to the other because of different reasons. And of course, in Kolkata study, we got about the urban area, urban elderly, it is 29.7%. That's high, definitely. And male also having the same thing, because not only because of iron deficiency, but also because of certain hormonal depletions. Hypertension, then again, one of the cardiovascular diseases, which is very important for the elderly. As the age increases, the hypertension also increases. And study on global aging and adult health, SAGE, also is a sort of large-scale study, reported obesity as a major risk factor for hypertension. And prevalence of hypertension also is a variable sort of percentage found. Now, there is another problem called hypothyroidism, and the thyroid problems are definitely much conspicuous among the elderly, and it is something which is to be given attention to much. And then again, the diabetes, the pressure and the sugar, these two terms are very, very familiar with the middle-aged and the elderly. And hyperglycemia is one of the very important issues of health, or the disease or ill health. And you have in different cities of India, you have different prevalence of hyperglycemia and diabetes. India is known as diabetes capital. And there are many different, cultural, behavioral, and, social factors that are affect hyperglycemia. Metabolic syndrome is a sort of cluster of syndromes, hypertension, obesity, and some such things, which actually impinge on the diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So metabolic syndrome is a very important issue for the elderly to turn them to diabetic and so on. So in worldwide, metas ranges from 10 to 50%. And of course, in India, it's spanning from the east to north, you have many different prevalences of high prevalences of metabolic syndrome also. Similarly, obesity is something which is to be taken care of. And if the inactivity or less physical activity is there, obesity naturally increases, and prevalences of obesity is much more in the city areas, in the urban areas compared to rural areas. And of course, for the elderly, loss of balance and incidence of fall, as well as fear of fall, is one of the very important issues to deal with. And for that also, very importantly, care is necessary, and also individual training also matters. So females show greater prevalence of fall than the males, and fear of fall is also in a very important aspect. Then, of course, you have a sort of, important issue of diet. Diet actually creates certain, physiological changes that impinges on the different systems, and we all know, and therefore diet is related to health, and among the elderly, it takes a special significance, and we have to be very cautious on the consumption of calorie or fat and more protein, something of that sort. So non-vegetarian food consumption is significantly lower in females than in males in India and among the study population which has been reported in Benares. Now, there are problems of malnutrition also, and National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau data shows that there are problems of malnourishment, and there are people who are at the risk of malnourishment. So this also gives us a kind of a warning that the elderly should be given enough attention, both at the state level and also at the individual level. Now, physical activity, again, in diet and physical activity are the two important issues that are important to maintain your health. And as the age increases, the whole scenario changes. And if the scenario is changed, then the health scenario will automatically change. Now, the physical activity is something which is to be, encouraged, and for that reason, there are a lot of care to be given. So these were a sort of snapshot of the physical health conditions which need or which warrant attention for the elderly so far as physical health is concerned. And of course, in case of psychological health, we have found that people are, elderly people are very much, afflicted with dementia, with depression, anxiety, loneliness, and cognitive problems. So these also are certain things which are coming out in a very fast in the elderly population. Wherever you go, you want to go to a Northeast or Kashmir or any other states, you will find that this particular psychological health is becoming very important to take care of. And of course, there is male-female differences in this particular health aspect. And in our field study conducted in Calcutta, observed common mental disorders and, as I said, depression, anxiety, loneliness, and cognitive function inability also. And depression is seemingly the most important health problem, psychological health problem here. And stress naturally is one of the things which are there in all the human beings. But as you age, the perceived stress increases. So in India, changing pattern in family structure and demanding routine of contemporary generation gives you a kind of a scenario gradually leading to increasing elderly psychosocial stress. And there are many studies which have shown that perceived stress is more in case of females than in males. There are many determining factors which we know, and there are many studies. We have no sort of time to discuss all these. So the conflicts among the family members in one hand, the economic problem on the other, and health problems another thing which leads to perceived stress. There are many different factors which lead to perceived stress. Now, you cannot simply cover all the issues of health in one sort of small deliberation, but you can also have to know that one particular aspect of health is related to the other aspect of health. So as a kind of package, we should have a comprehensive health care, both taking importance of both psychological and physical health issues. And then the care issue is also very, very complex. And the care issue is made for the personal care and for the home care and for the institutional care. All kinds of things are important in their own rights. So, fact of the matter is that when we find data from the urban educated, economically sound elderly, we find that in spite of the multimorbidity or unimorbidity, there are possibilities of good care, good institutional care, because you have hospitals or hospices in the...
Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. So, so as a matter of fact, you have better facilities available in the urban sector, and therefore you can have hospitals so to take to your elderly people. But when the slum dwelling people is considered, slum dwelling elderly are considered, they are having inadequate facilities, inadequate care facilities in the urban itself. So you can guess how the rural elderly can be treated. So there are inadequacy of health infrastructure, unavailability of inaccessibility of appropriate health care, out-of-pocket expenditure is also increasing because of certain policies taken by the government. And of course, there are many systems of medicine which can be chosen by the elderly, and it depends on ailments. And now, elderly empowerment. There is something which is also coming up very fast these days. So people want to be empowered. Your women are to be empowered. The children are to be empowered. So elderly are to be empowered before they leave for the heavenly abode. So what is the sort of scenario here? A focused and effective geriatric care program is needed in India urgently. So the feeling was there, but then what we find here from the perspective of the government and those who are in the governance are trying to give a new kind of a set of facilities, a new kind of a paradigm in times. So let us have some sort of information here. The first one was National Health Policy, National Program for Healthcare for the Elderly, NPHCE, in 2010. And of course, it has a totalistic view of the healthcare for the elderly, both in physical and psychological health, keeping notions of that. Then again, Ministry of Social Justice has come forward with the National Action Plan for Welfare of Senior Citizens, NAPSRC 2020. And it has many aspects and common things which should be taken into account, and a greater importance should be given on the basis of certain reviews and results that they have found. Then, of course, very recently in 2024, Niti Aayog publishes in February this year a position paper called Senior Care Reforms in India, Reimagining the Senior Care Paradigm. So what Niti Aayog is now thinking that so far what has happened may need change. And therefore, some paradigm shift is there. So the senior care system faces many challenges as perceived by the Niti Aayog, and they are actually coming out with certain additional things for better managing the health and other care, health, finance, and all other different kinds of care for the elderly. So the fact of the matter is, it all depends on how international arena is playing. What we have seen here again is the 2021 to 2030 becomes the United Nations, decade of healthy aging. Now, on the basis of decade of healthy aging paradigm, our country will also, as a sort of a member state, will have its own sort of programs to go for a better management of elderly health care. There are, of course, very different promises, as a matter of fact, from the institutions, from the government. But as a matter of fact, each one of us has to be very vigilant. Those who are actually in the research line and come forward with our research plans, so that at the local level we can manage things at the behest of the other paradigms that has been given by international and national bodies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Mukhopadhyay. It was a very enlightful presentation that I have seen. I've been making notes also, most of the things you have covered, and I think you have holistically approached to the most of the diseases that the elderly are currently suffering with, and particularly the elderly population in India. You talked about the LASI study, which is out, and in fact, it is out in certain waves. So wave 1 and wave 2 is certainly out. And there is a lot to see from there, and we as an anthropologist can also learn most of the things, how the current studies are focusing on elderly population, and not only elderly population. When I say LASI study, it's a large population study. So we got to
45, middle age and
middle age, and you also talked about the decade in healthy aging, and also the WHO is very much advocating about the age-friendly cities nowadays. So that is something most of the ministries in urban affairs are looking forward to. So we have been also chaired one of the session there in the ministry, wherein they are looking forward to creating age-friendly cities. So age-friendly cities is the vision that they have taken. By 2047. Most of our cities will become age-friendly in terms of.
I think you can get all these in the NITI program. They have detailed, sort of programs schedule in their report.
Yeah.
So if one goes by the report, has to have so many information collected on the basis of individual interest. One can have sort of micro studies as the expertise goes, or the macro one as it.
Yes. And also recently what is happening, Ministry of Urban and Home Affairs is actually planning with the PMO, so it's orders from PMO office that we should set up certain wellness centers for elderly persons. Now they are looking at focusing not only on the elderly population but also coupling it with the children and the basically the women population in India. So they are coming up with the concept of daycare wellness centers for elderly women and also children. So it's a good step towards towards the elder care in India. If there are any particular questions, if you would like to put forward, so we can have the questions answered and responded.
Kind of the countries who have some kind of demographic problem. Right now, the Japan is going with this one. So many elderly people. So people are not getting married, and the workforce is not coming. So I feel this is a very important thing for a lot of the states and a lot of the countries where this it's an incompatible demographic structure. And I feel in India also going in that particular thing. So right now, this is very important. What you said, this is mostly extragenic factors about the aging, but there are some kind of intragenic factors also. So I'm just putting up a name that is the chromosome telomere, right? It's very much important in case of aging. So this might have to be taken once. I feel that will come up after 5-6 years. The people will take this one. Yeah. Okay. So have a quantitative decision about how you are really.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The fact of the matter is that so far as your telomere theory This is one of the theories of aging of biology, biological aging. Similarly, you have so many theories on psychological and social, aging. So actually, as a matter of fact, these three components interact at one level, you see, and the programs that come should have all the components together. And therefore, whatever you feel about the telomere shortening, these will also be counted somewhere if the necessity arises in case of, say, elderly health or elderly physical health. But in the finance sector, but in the sector for regular care, these things are not very important. No, so it has importance in one domain of elderly care, but not in others. So whatever I've said is right. That particular intense search is also needed, and I think it has to be also incorporated in ICMR, program of doing this because it's particularly biology. Okay, I think it satisfies you, right? Okay.
Just to add that right now we are going with curative, so I feel that our mindset will be coming very soon as a preventive.
That's right.
That's a point that I'm just going to add.
But that will only will stop aging, retard aging, or something of that sort. You see, so that will also be a kind of.
For example, some disorders which is coming in the age, like dementia or Alzheimer's. So if you can prevent this one early and if you have some kind of biomarker, that you might have dementia or might have Alzheimer's. So last day I have just given the point that is know your risk, modify your future. So if you have any risk, so you know your risk.
That will be there.
So that's why I'm just incorporating
As the AI comes, all these things will come.
Yeah. But original thing is very much important. Like AI is not original.
Anyway, so it comes.
I enjoy it. Thank you.
The co-chair for the session is Dr. Bidisha Banerjee. Dr. Bidisha has done her PhD in Public Policy and Public Administration from the George Washington University. She is an experienced academic and consultant with a demonstrated history of working in universities and the think tanks industry. Her area of specialization includes policy analysis, policy design, policy advocacy, sustainability, etc. Dr. Bidisha. Okay.
So moving on and maintaining the paucity of time, I would like to invite Dr. Chandana Sarma. She's a welcome ma'am. She's a professor of physical anthropology at Guwahati University, Guwahati. She holds an MSc and PhD from Guwahati University and has extensively contributed to research in anthropological gerontology, bioculture, health and nutrition. Her research primarily focusing on aging, health and nutrition among the marginalized communities in Assam, especially the Teva and the Karbi tribes. She has led multiple research projects funded by prestigious bodies. Dr. Sarma has presented her work at various national and international conferences, and she also serves as the editor of the Bulletin of the Department of Anthropology at Guwahati University. With decades of research experience, her work on the biosocial aspects of aging has significantly advanced the field of anthropology in North India. So I welcome you with these words, ma'am. And I was there in the first session you were chairing. We were having some traditional knowledge, and I really liked that session and also the way you conducted it. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction as well as the compliments on the last session. I think my work that I'm going to talk about today is maybe carrying over from what Professor Mukhopadhyay had already spoken about. So that is kind of the base. So my thing, we know that the aging demographies are changing towards aging of populations. But what is most, we see that, even in the whole world, especially in the developing and developed countries, what we see today, that two aspects are taken over, the two other demographic aspects have taken over. One is aging of population, and the other is that of urbanization. We are shifting towards urban centers, and what studies have most shown that urban places do not generally provide a conducive environment for growing old in. because so many aspects of the elderly, and urban environment, which are not really in favor of the older people. So I will not go into these aspects. I think they have been presented in my slide, and all of us, I'm sure, are very, very familiar with the kind of congestions or the things that we face in an urban context. And this urban, the person environment interaction is something which has been of interest to researchers for a very long time. And as early as 1936, Kurt Lewin had given this equation where behavior of a person is the result of the function of a person and the environment. And in this context, he had given two aspects, that is when we talk about the person, it is the competence level of the person which will determine his interaction with the environment. And the environment plays, presents a lot of stress or in different kinds of press, what he defines as press, environmental press, which will interact with each other to define the interpersonal or interperson environment interaction. So the competence and the environmental press aspects I have already given in the slide. So this ecological theory, which had been given by Bronfenbrenner, where he says that it is how a person, the environment effectively can promote all aspects of elderly people, because it is very important of how we interact with the environment. And studies, Beard and Petitot, they had done a review where they found that how important the environment is for elderly health. It is found that it plays a very important role. This has been from the reviews of the work that has been done on person environment interaction. And so if we want our elderly persons to live in a situation where Professor Mukhopadhyay had also talked about inactivity among elderly population. So if we want them to have an active life and maintain their health, we have to give them an environment which allows them to, be physically active and also remain productively engaged in the society. So that is very important for the elderly persons. So at present, we find the United Nations, the World Health Organization, they are all promoting this concept, United Nations, as my previous speaker had already mentioned, the decade of healthy aging. And among the 4 workable aspects that they have identified, creating an age-friendly environment is one of the aspects. And similarly, you have talked about the World Health concept of age-friendly cities, which also is, aimed at creating the age-friendly cities. And I think it is only when we have a situation or what we call an environment where the social participation is possible, then we can have actively an aging population in the country. And currently for India, we have this vision, Vikshit Bharat at 2047. We are all familiar with this. And this vision, Vikshit Bharat, also aims to the goal of it is to make every citizen part of this, the development process. And as we are having a very rapidly growing older section of society, so we cannot leave out this section. We need their voices. We want to know what actually they prefer in kinds of, to have an age-friendly environment. So this, all these 3 aspects that I have mentioned here, all talk about creating an age-friendly environment. So it is very, very important that we provide them a situation where they can age well. So I will not go into details about the characteristics of the Indian elderly population. So this has come out in the recent Indian Aging Report in 2023. So in addition to our, most of the elderly living predominantly in the rural areas, we also have a large section of this elderly population who live in in urban areas. And the feminization of aging and the growth of the extreme older section are some of the issues that we are having to face in Indian context. And so we need to have to deal with this. We have to deal not with just the elderly demography, but also the social, psychological, cultural aspects that emerge out of this growing demography. So when can we consider as an elderly person as having well-being, or when are they considered as well? It is through a mechanism where we can provide scope for social inclusion, that is very, very important, and also provide possibilities for active aging, where they can remain both physically, socially, as well as, functionally and cognitively independent. And also aging in place, that means they age in a place where they have grown old in. So when I'm talking about this age-friendly cities concept, where we have most of our, a large section of our elderly population who are growing old in urban areas, we are trying to, we have to provide a scope for aging in place. And when we are talking about providing a scope for aging in place, I do not mean a center for older people, but we want to for them to have a scope for aging in their own homes, where they are able to maintain their, their social connections, social aspects, social interactions, social, and also have an independent functionality. So it is, we have to provide them within what is known as an age-friendly urban environment to ensure all of these aspects. I have made this study primarily for preparing a research project for age-friendly cities. So this was a pilot study from which I have given. So I'm talking about Guwahati context, which where, of the place I come from, where we have seen, that this city is in the process of becoming a smart city. It has undergone a lot of change, and there's a lot of migration, and it being the connecting city to all the other northeastern states. So there is an influx of a lot of people, and so the city is undergoing change at a very rapid rate. So some of the features I had already mentioned here. So, and as we all know, the cities they tend to be more youth-centric, where, with scope for functioning of elderly people tends to become less. So if we talk about requirements for an age-friendly urban environment, we need to have accessible infrastructure, outdoor spaces where there can be possibilities for physical activity and other aspects, then healthcare and social services, and the home environment. We also tend to overlook this in a lot of times, because the home environment can also be made elderly friendly, because we generally don't think of it, because as we grow older, what happens, we tend to that adaptation to the existing environment also tends to decline, because climbing a flight of stairs, which had been easier in early part of your life, can never be the same as you grow older. So the home environment also becomes important. Then the safety, security, and also the most important aspect I feel is the social inclusion. So I'll just try to give you a present picture of what Guwahati has. So when we look at this for this study, we found that the infrastructure that we have in Guwahati is absolutely not suitable for, I think that is applicable to most cities in India, except for a few cities. I think Kochi is the only city in India which has come under the purview of this age-friendly environment concept. And there are Pune and Bhubaneswar are said to be age-friendly. So Bhubaneswar is also undertaking some projects, like you said, the Center for Interaction between recreational aspects. So this, a lot of developmental projects are undergoing, overbridges, water supply, because the population is increasing at such a rapid rate. So these things are necessary, it's undoubtedly necessary, but how it is impacting older people. So there is very, the people, even when they have the level of competence where they can move about or move out of their homes, these infrastructural aspects have put a hindrance to them, for them to move about on their own. And in this process, they have also become dependent on other people. A person, if he had this kind of street where it's safe enough to go out on his own, or a footpath which is actually used for walking, then that person may be able to go out on their own. But it is very, very difficult for a person when these things are not there in place, especially for elder people, because they are afraid of walking out and having a fall and hindering their other family members as well. So in the process, we find that the older people are remaining closed, confined to their spaces. We are kind of putting them under house arrest, for the infrastructure is putting them under house arrest. So what we find that, most importantly, for urban infrastructure, there should be specific guidelines where their spaces can be made accessible, usable, and where the people with even limited mobility can use them. countries like Netherlands have specific for public spaces. They have guidelines where it is accessible as well as usable by people with all kinds of mobility. So this, maybe we need to have some kind of such urban kind of regulations embedded into our system, where when a new structure comes up, at least it is made environment friendly. To cite one simple example, like the DC office in Guwahati had very recently been built up. It has been shifted to a new location. But even there, which has seized the highest amount of footfall for people of all ages, I happened to take my mother once for some reason, and she was finding it very difficult to walk because all the floors are the same color. The demarcation between steps and things are not there. There are no grab rails for persons when they're climbing the stairs. So this is not something that just my mother would have felt, but it is, I think, true for every older person. So these aspects of infrastructural changes need to be incorporated into all our public spaces so that they can be made accessible to all people with all kinds of mobility. And in case of Guwahati, where since it's undergoing changes, the familiar landmarks are changing. Most of independent houses are being converted into apartment buildings, which are also having a impact because there is migration. New people are coming into the locality, so the elderly populations do not feel safe going out into these places. So outdoor spaces are not there. We do not have sufficient outdoor space, and even the limited number of parks and spaces that are available, they are not located close to residential areas where older people can use them at their convenience for for their health purposes, for the functional physical activity levels and all this. So these things should be incorporated into the urban planning so that the scope for such spaces are created when new developments come up. And the other aspect of social inclusion, which is very important because elderly, specific group like people who have retired from service, they are allowed, they can become, they can continue to participate at some level in the civics. There might be civic participation, but people who have not been involved in the formalized sector or women who had not been working, there is very little scope for such people to really go out. So we have, the support is primarily family oriented, and with now more families becoming smaller in size, women working outside their homes, children moving out for studies and job, the number of family members available for providing this kind of service is not there. And the mobile phone, which we all know about the hazards of mobile phone, that appears to be the only mechanism for social connection for older people, because people will either talk on the phones or they can remain connected with their peers or their relatives only through the phone. And in case of Guwahati, there was this place called Namghar, which is primarily a place for spirituality, and it also provides a scope for social interaction. And in most Namghars, especially in the month of August and end of August, beginning of September, there used to be regular prayers, which all age group people would attend, and especially women from the older ages would attend. But because of the changing infrastructural aspects of Guwahati, it is becoming practically impossible for older women to visit the Namghars and carry on this aspect of social interaction that is possible through them. So and another very important aspect that I feel, which is limiting elder interaction, is the social stereotypes that seem to operate, because we have specific ideas about how older people should behave, and this in a way also limits their social interaction to a large extent, because it is supposing they might want to go out for a movie, but if you ask my mother to go out to a movie, the first thing she will say, hey, will I go, like I'm talking in Assamese, like moi jam janu etu boyhotar ki korim. That means in my age, should I go for a movie? But this is something, a restriction, I think, which is imposed on her from our society or the culture. So these stereotypes also kind of tend to affect adversely their healthcare. And the health, as Professor Mukhopadhyay had already mentioned, is one of the most important aspects of their life. And here we find that healthcare services are not suitable for elderly, whether it is the government sector or whether it is the private sector. We do not have specific, there are Guwahati Medical College has the geriatric unit, but except, really using of this care is not very possible because of the large section of people, the large number which is concentrated there. So there is no support system, no social service which can cater to this need for, elderly population's need. And the aspects of safety security is something we all know about. In Guwahati, actually, the police had started a system where older individuals who live alone can register with the local police for security purposes. But given the kind of the rapport that police has, or the kind of image that police has, most elderly populations are they are scared about registering their kind of giving them an invitation to come and letting them know that we are living alone. So most of these things are not really working in the sense that the government is expecting to. But in the recent times, we see some aspects which have been taken to kind of include the elderly population into as matters of social inclusion. Especially, this is something which is currently going on. 26th and 27th, they are having this program where it is under this senior citizens welfare body, which is hosting a cultural program. It's kind of a competition specific to elder people. It is being held in every district. Winners from all districts will come and they will have a state level competition. So I think this is one step for making a inclusive environment. And there are some aspects like celebrations and celebrations of older senior citizens day, which has a mechanism for creating awareness about the needs of older people. So this kind of things have it creates a situation where we are conscious about what the needs are that can come about. But this is a very, very small step that I have mentioned, and I think we need many more such steps to create an older age-friendly environment. So I will conclude with this, that the first important thing that we need for creating an age-friendly city is the need for an awareness for such a city, that we need this age-friendly city. That is important. And the regulations have to be in place for making public places accessible as well as usable by not just the young people, but also elderly and also young people with maybe different kinds of mobility. And creating avenues for recreational interaction, maybe at the local level where even the Namghar can maybe converted into a place for interaction, and the development of the different social service facilities that are necessary for catering to the special needs of elderly people, which are very different from younger population. And as academicians, I think it is important that we have more research and more understanding of the situation, and which can be, because each city, each place will have its own characteristics, own cultural background. So what is applicable here may not be applicable in all other cities. So it should be very, place specific. So we need more research on this so that we have a better understanding of how we can really create an age-friendly environment in different areas and become a developed nation by 2047, as our Prime Minister is envisioning. Okay, with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chandana, for an insightful presentation on the urban environment in Delhi. Certainly, you have enlightened us with the concept of aging in place. So that is what is the need of the hour. And basically, what Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is looking forward is to creating a cadre of home caregivers. So what they are doing is they want to create a cadre of 1 lakh caregivers across the country, providing home care training to the community itself. So that way they are creating a pool of caregivers that can take care of the elderly persons within the home itself. So that is the concept of aging in place they have in mind, and they would be likely to do it by March 2025. So they are putting a lot of agencies to take this program forward. also about you talked about the elder friendly cities, and I think one of the critical aspect to it is the elderly transportation also, because elder friendly, yeah.
But I did not speak out maybe, but it's there in my slide.
So elder friendly transportation is something. So Chennai has already done this. Tamil Nadu becomes first city where they have started a age friendly transportation for elderly persons. So that is something that Chennai has done. Apart from that, we have been very grateful for your presentation and enlightening us with the concept of overall urban environment in which the elderly can be safeguarded and live a life with dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have in-person presentation, I guess. So next, I'll call Mr. Devashit Satyapathy. Please come, and we'll be sticking to some shortage of time. So 7 minutes is what we are looking at. If you can just skip to your research findings and whatever facts that you want to present and share.
कौन सा ये है? हो गया कर दिया हाँ कर दिया
Good afternoon, everyone present over here. Myself, Devashwar Satpathy. I am from Puri. I'll be presenting my topic on evaluating healthcare service preference among elderly residents of urban settlements of Puri, Odisha. Okay. So, the well-being of senior citizen is a critical factor that shapes the health profile of a population. In India, according to the 2011 census, individual aged 60 years and above make up 8.6% of the total population. In India, the proportion of older person has increased from 4.9% in 1901 to 5.5% in 1952, 6.5% in 1991, and 7.7% in 2001, and is projected to reach 12% by the 2025. Increased human longevity, currently at 64 in India, has led to greater expectation for health and service, necessitating extensive research on various health and disease aspects in old age and innovation in providing social and economic services. In January 1999, the Government of India issued a document called the National Older Persons. The Ministry of
Excuse
Health.
me, maybe you want to spend more time on your findings and implications, okay? So you can skip the introduction, you can talk about, the work you've actually done. So that will be very useful for the audience.
So here are the objectives to analyze the socio-economic and demographic profile of the elderly population, to examine the nutritional and health-seeking behaviors among the elderly. So for the methodologies, the study design is a cross-sectional study. The sample size is of 188 elderly population, age above 60 years between and the study was conducted from January 2024 to July 2024. The sampling technique is simple random technique. The anthropometric parameters that was used as the height, weight, MUAC, that is mid upper arm circumference, and the calf circumference were collected using the standard procedures. And for the demographic analysis, I have used the modified BG Prasad scales, and for statistical analysis, I have used the IBM SPSS. Here are the results. First, in that picture, you can see the age distribution table. Almost 104 are male and 84 are female. The mean age of the male is 69 years, while the women it was 70.17 years, and almost 124, that is 65%, 65.96% were in the age group of 60 to 69 years. And the medication that were followed by the elderlies are the most participant. 94% use the allopathic medicine for treatment in case of illness, while the other 4% people prefers Ayurvedic medicines, while 2% population still follows the homeopathy. Of these, 23.69% visited district headquarter hospitals, while 73.61% prefer private hospital and nursing home for morbidity treatment. And this table is of BMI status. This table shows that the distribution of participants' weight categories. It reveals that 27 individuals are underweight, 80 people fall within the normal weight range, and 39 are classified as overweight, while the remaining 42 participants are categorized as obese, highlighting a varied range of body weight statuses across the group. And in the next second picture, you can see the MNS status. So based on this table, 57.45% of individuals have a normal nutritional status, comprising 71 males and 37 females. Additionally, 36.17%, that is n is equal to 68 people, are risk of malnutrition, including 42 males and 26 females. The remaining 6.38%, that is the 12 numbers, are undernourished, with 8 males and 4 females. According to our finding, women were more malnourished than men, statistically significant. So the health issues like the self-morbidities were prevalent among the participants, with 85 individuals facing arthritis, 26 individuals facing vision issues, 7 individuals experiencing chewing issues, 18 individuals having walking issues, 5 individuals having hearing issues, and 28 individuals suffering from high blood pressure, and 19 individuals having diabetes. Another one is the next picture is the alcohol consumption. This data shows that 2.8% of the participants consume alcohol, 5.69% of 5.69% chewed pan, and 9.21% use tobacco. A significant majority, 91.23% of population consumes tea, indicating that tea was by far the most common consumption habit among the group, while alcohol, pan, and tobacco uses were relatively low. So I couldn't able to due to the timing issue, I couldn't able to update the demographic profile. So in discussion, according in this study, 54.78% of participants suffer from joint pain and locomotor disorders, followed by hypertension in 14.89% and vision related problem in 13.82%. A study by Barwa K et al. Observed that 70.4% experience arthritis and mobility issues, while 58% are visual impairments. A comprehensive study conducted in Spain reportedly significant lower rates of malnutrition and risk of malnutrition compared to the finding of our study. Overall, our results indicates that most elderly individuals are in normal nutritional condition, although a larger population is at risk of malnutrition compared to those who are malnourished. The study effectively analyzed the socio-economic and demographic profile of the elderly population and examined their nutritional and health-seeking behaviors. The finding reveals that most of the elderly rely on private healthcare and allopathic medicine, with many suffering from chronic conditions like arthritis and hypertension. Nutritional habits were varied, though tea consumption was widespread, and malnutrition, particularly among women, is a concern. Socioeconomic factors such as family dependency and limited awareness of pension scheme also play a significant role in their overall well-being. In conclusion, targeted intervention addressing healthcare access, nutrition, and socioeconomic support are crucial for improving the quality of life and health outcomes of the elderly in slum and urban areas of Puri district. Thank you.
See, you are a guest faculty, right? Somewhere you are teaching somewhere. My only suggestion to you is, if this presentation was from a student, we would not have said anything. Since you are a faculty member, you are teaching somebody. So I think there are many really concerning things over in this first methodology. Just go to the methodology section. Methodology. Now, first objectives. You are first of all, you should always say you nutritional health seeking behavior. You are not, you didn't talk anything about health seeking behavior in your this thing. You just, so your objectives should match your discussion conclusions. It is not matching, so you should be careful. And then next methodology, you use the word simple random technique. What is that? Actually, you can use convenient sampling, a snowball sampling, or just sampling, stratified sampling. It cannot be random sampling. Random sampling usually we do for genetic studies where we try to see they are not related. So it cannot be simple random sampling. Okay. So small issues are there. You should be careful. And the sample size, of course, is very less. So you cannot really come to any conclusions. That's why I'm not talking anything on your conclusions, because the sample size is too small. But you have done the work, you are going to present it, so do it in a proper way. That's all. Otherwise, it's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. And I would also like to add, you can also use the comprehensive geriatric assessment tool. So that's a tool which is available in the public domain, and that's a verified tool, validated tool by World Health Organizations. So whenever you're conducting such studies where health-seeking behavior is, and you're looking forward to health assessments, use this tool. This is very useful. Next, we have Ms. Sayantri Banerjee. Can I call her for the presentation now? So we have Ms. Shweta Jain. Yeah, sure.
So again, I'd like to reiterate, Ms. Shweta, please directly come to your objectives and the methodology. Okay, thank you.
A very good afternoon to the chair, co-chair and everyone present here. My name is Shweta Jain. Today I am presenting on nutritional risk and quality of life among elderly population of the Jain community of Delhi. And as we have discussed before, there is a risk of dietary disorders, digestive disorders, and as the life expectancy has been improved and the concern of population aging is increasing, as the older individuals ages, the risk of malnutrition and risk of poor nutrition is increased, and its prevalence among the older adults worldwide varies from 1% to the approximately 25%. The challenges related to eating, suboptimal dietary habits, and unnoticed nutrition related concern such as malnutrition frequently persist in old age. So the aim and objective of this present paper is, the aim of the present study is to determine the relationship between quality of life and nutritional risk in the older adults. And the objective is to identify the older adults in Jain community who are at nutritional risk and find the association of nutritional risk with the quality of life domains in the Jain community of Delhi. So the methodology used for the present study is, this is a cross-sectional study which is conducted on community dwelling people on the people aged 60 years and above belonging to Jain community of Delhi regions. Total 403 individuals were included in the study involving 211 females and 192 males. The variables included for the present study, the nutritional assessment was done by using mini nutritional assessment questionnaire and the simplified appetite assessment questionnaire. For quality of life, WHO BREF quality of life questionnaire was used, and other anthropometric measures like BMI and derived adiposity indices were used to assess the nutritional status. So, for findings, as we can see that majority of the participants have attained education from primary to intermediate school levels. Majority of them were not working, and significant percentages of people, like 36% females and 16.7% males, have lost their spouses. However, majority of them were still married. The mean age of the population was 67 years, and with this table we can see that through anthropometric measures, like majority of males were found to be heavier and taller than females with significantly differences, and all the body circumferences measures shows that females are at higher risk of adiposity in comparison to males with significant differences. The fat composition, like from skin fold measurements, it is showing that females have high fat accumulation at skin fold thicknesses sites in comparison to males with significant findings. And the graph shows that through waist hip ratio and waist height ratio, it is clearly indicating that majority are at risk, and this circumference shows that females have high risk of central adiposity in comparison to males with significant differences. BMI is also showing that both the males and females are at risk of obesity and increased weight with significant findings. And through the through the assessment with questionnaires like MMA and AAS, we can see that majority were in the normal nutritional level, but how 1/3 of them had the risk of malnutrition, and 3% or 1.7% of males were already malnourished. Appetite assessment score also showed that majority were at risk of weight loss in terms of like they were only including 2 times per two meals per day, and they lost the sense of taste, and their taste buds were not functioning in that way. Because of that, they were at risk of weight loss. In this table, we can see that overall quality of life shows that more than 30% of males and females had poor quality, overall quality of life with significant differences. And in all the domains, we can see that females were at high risk of low quality of life in comparison to males with significant findings in only in physical and social domain. And if we see the order in males, the low quality of life is indicating more in social domain than in environmental and psychological and then physical. And in females, it is in low quality of life in social and physical, environmental and psychological domain. So, if we apply the multivariate analysis to find the association between the risk, quality of life domains and the risk of nutrition, we can see that all the domains have shown significant findings. It means that if the people having low quality of life, there is a more likely to have a risk of nutrition with significant findings. But if, after adjusting some variables like the usage of medications, like the age and gender and other socio-demographic variables, the only significant findings we can see in physical domain. In another table, we have found the association of all the physical and social demographic variable with the risk of nutrition, and it has been found that frailty and depression, all the psychological variables showed significant association with the risk of nutrition. It means you can see that frail people who are more likely, like 13 times are more risk of poor nutrition, and who have poor psychological pattern like more depression, isolation, loneliness, they are also at more risk of poor nutrition. But after adjusting socio-demographic variables like occupation, education and age, gender did not show any association with poor nutrition, but marital status and psychological variables and frailty are found to be independent significant predictors of poor nutrition in the Jain community of Delhi. So another studies which have already published their work have found consistency with my work, and 60% of them have only used BMI as an indicator of nutrition for assessing the association between quality of life and nutrition. So in my present study, I have used BMI and the self-reported questionnaire to identify the risk of nutrition with the quality of life. And in a study in Thai community-based study, I found that they have found chronic pain, moderate to severe chronic pain, and smoking as an independent significant factor for poor nutrition. And age and gender occupation also were significant predictors in their study. But in my study, only physical domain, like so showed significant association with the poor nutrition status in the Jain community. So in conclusion, we can say that the result reported a significant association with the quality of life with the nutritional status, and overall quality of life and physical domain were only significantly associated, and frailty and marital status, which shows strong link between them. However, the factor involved to define nutritional status and quality of life can vary in different studies. So the present study contributes in the understanding of nutritional risk and quality of life in the community dwelling elderly Jain population. These are the references which I've used. And lastly, thank you. And I would like to acknowledge organizing committee of 54th annual conference of IAS, Department of Anthropology. Thank you so much.
Shweta, nice presentation, nice data, but in a hurry, your writing was good, okay, but you said that frailty is leading to nutrition, bad nutrition. I think it is reverse, isn't it?
Ma'am, it's vice versa. Like poor
Nutrition is first, then frailty.
Ma'am, there might be other indicators which can lead to frailty other than nutrition.
That is of course there, but when I don't think we can, if nutrition is something coming from outside, and frailty is your experiencing, your body, mechanisms depend on your nutrition. So nutrition, if you have bad nutrition, you may experience frailty, you may experience pain. So, but in your conclusion, you wrote correct. But while saying, you said reverse. So you please correct it. And most importantly, I found something very interesting in your study. You said there is quite good number of people who lost their spouses. So if you can add a chapter, what are the risk factors? What is the health profile of those people in comparison with those whose spouses are not lost? Something like that. That will be at least a good paper. I don't think I've not found such a paper. This small piece of information is, I'm just giving you an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Subject where she talks about, what happens to people who've lost their spouses. And it is said that women tend to do better than men.
Next is on online present. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have an online presentation by Dr. Sri Krishna Mondal. If he is present online, we can start the presentation.
Yes, sir. I am present.
Okay.
Dr. Mondal, am I audible to you? Dr. Mondal?
Hello?
Dr. Mondal?
Hello.
Dr. Mondal?
I am audible.
Yes, you are audible. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
You have 5 minutes. We are running out of time. You have 5 minutes for the presentation. Request the audience and the judges to keep the questions at the end of the session. So,
Yes, madam.
please come to your objectives and findings, and please keep it brief. Thank you.
Myself, Sri Krishna Mandal, Assistant Professor of Bangabasi College, respected chairperson and respected other participant. Everybody, good afternoon. This is my introduction. The aging population are facing into the biggest challenges 21st century in global context and also India, and it is also that problem also found across the rural, urban and tribal peoples. This is my objective, to understand about the socio-economic condition of the aged population, understand social relationship with the younger generation, and understand about the physical, social problems and psychosomatic problems aged above 60, and to understand the government policies and issues to ameliorate the misery. Methodology, it is an empirical study and stratified purposive sampling considered to search the research activity. And also I take a secondary data from old age ashram and some Panchayat office. This is my sample size, and I also search about the present facilities at the old age ashram, which are under the central government finance, and there have doctors, nurse, caretakers and sweepers and clerk and other clerker and other assistants. They get the hospitalities and facilities and also medical care from the old age home. This is the some quantitative representation about the old age male and female who has reside at the old age home, but previously they were at the that types of families. And this is the age group status, male and female, and male occupational status, female occupational status. This is the systematic health disorder represented. They are affected by the respiratory tract infection, eye problem, ear problem, tongue problem, nose, spondylitis, and arthritis. And there are some people are also feels healthy. This is the holistic representation in my study in rural West Bengal. The aged people problem like the increasing in their ill health social condition, discord social relationship with younger generation, psychosocial stress, decreasing in quality of life, increasing physical disability, and socio-economic factors also responsible behind that. The positive factors, these are a decreasing of physical activity at the old age, decline of occupational activity. They were not service, they were engaged in the agricultural field, but the old age, they loses their manual power and gradually in the and earning power, and also voiceless, powerless in their family. Loss of occupational ability, low level of economic condition and material position, and social distance with their family members. There are some developmental factors ameliorate their misery and disability. They are the national pension policies of older people, NGO activity for the old age home, daycare center facilities, national social assistance scheme, government sponsor scheme for the old age security in India. And they getting the benefit from this developmental program, and they are life, but they enjoy some hospitality and happiness at the late age of life in relation to the food and health security, maintenance of the quality of life, recreation and spiritual activity, association with the same age group, maintenance of daily routine life, restoration of social, psychological and physical health, decreasing disability. Decreasing disability. Conclusion: the historically gradual growth of town and industry leads to population increase and decreasing in the agricultural land. Besides, the family land holding pattern has been decreasing generation after generation. The present younger generation have earned the small plot of land. Most of aged person come from the marginal agricultural family and agricultural daily labor. The younger member of the family suffer from unemployment and lack of agricultural production and migratory labor. The relationship between aged parents and younger generation are conflicting due to low level of economic condition. The aged person suffer from multiple problems in relation to the diet and dress and physical problems. The poor level of madam kindly minutes give me the poor level of socio-economic condition leads to change the social behavior of younger generation, and it creates the discord social environment at the domestic level. Aged father and mother compelled to take the shelter at old age home. They have got the hospitality and old age at old age home in relation to their diet, medicine, sanitation, meditation, enjoy the stress-free life up to the end. This is my suggestion, and may I conclude?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
We will quickly move to the next presenter, Dr. Johnson Sima. If she is online, she can connect and start sharing her screen. Yeah. So we'll have 5 minutes more as we have separated the 5 minutes. So if you can.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible and your screen is visible. Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me time. Today I'd like to present on the topic of health issue and other challenges among elderly population of India. As I am at the initial stage of my research, I have not started data collection, but I'd like to present the literature that I have found interesting and that will help in my research. Let's directly first move on to the introduction. I would like to give a brief global perspective of aging. As we all know that India is going through a demographic transition. I will not go into detail of that as previous presenters have all presented it. I'll just mention a few important points. While increasing life expectancy is a positive outcome, it also brings several challenges, including poverty and dependency, mental and physical morbidity, and also lack of social supports among the geriatric population. And the second thing is, I would quote from Alameda. They have reported that by 2050, the number of elderly people globally will surpass the number of individuals under the age of 15, which has happened first time in the history. And also the demographic shift poses new challenge and urgent call for urgent changes in healthcare systems, social services, and community support structure. And third point is, in order to achieve the sustainable development goal 3, that is good health and well-being. So it is very important to achieve the good health and well-being of all ages, and it is crucial in the context of elderly care. The elderly require specific attention under this goal to ensure they receive adequate health care and support. Now, I would like to take a brief distribution of elderly population. In 2017, 962 million people worldwide were aged 60 and older, and this number is projected to be more than double to 2,080 million by 2050. This emphasizes that aging population are a global concern with significant increase in elderly population across the worldwide. As we come to India, it is reported that by 2051, India will have approximately 301 million elderly individuals, constituting 22.5% of the total population. This projected increase shows the urgent need for policy, infrastructure, and healthcare system to be adopted for the aging population in India for the near futures. So methodology, I have used search engines such as Google Scholar, PubMed, and Scopus. The inclusion criteria was articles that were published in the last 10 years, articles that were published in peer-reviewed journal in English language, and such keyword were used. So these are the findings. I will not go in detail. I'll just give the brief findings of each studies. So Aruna Ghosh and Arjun Singh has studied among the elderly population of Tripura, and they have reported that 70% of elderly experiencing moderate disabilities. They were also having health problems such as visual impairment, hearing loss, and hypertension. This highlights the prevalence of sensory impairment among the elderly in Tripura and points to the need for accessible healthcare services for vision and hearing issues. Next is Mini and Ahoja 2007. They have studied among the elderly population of urban Kerala, and they have also reported chronic health issue among the elderly population, and also social problems such as insufficient income to meet basic needs and abuses from their family members were significant concern. The study underscored the socioeconomic struggle faced by the elderly in urban setting, with a focus on income insecurity and family neglect. Third is Keritar et al. 2015. They have studied among the rural and urban elderly population, and they have reported that both rural and urban elderly women suffer from income security, economic independence,
Dr. Shiva,
and poor health.
Dr.
Yes.
Shiva, could you actually give your conclusions where you can sum up your findings?
Sure. I have, since there were lots of this thing, I have summed up into this 4 subcategory. So from the review, it has come to the conclusion that many elderly individuals suffer from multiple chronic illnesses averaging from 5.8 medical condition. There were approximately 15% of elderly population that experienced mental disorders, with the pandemic COVID intensifying the issue like depression and anxiety. And the second problem is socioeconomic challenges. Many elderly lack adequate financial support, leading to increased vulnerability to financial abuse. Third is social isolation, since India is transitioning from traditional family system to nuclear family system. The social support system are weakening, leading to increase in isolation and elderly abuse. And last is access to healthcare. Limited access to healthcare services, especially in rural area, hampers their timely medical intervention. So the takeaway from this presentation is that it will be crucial to improve the infrastructure so that incidents like fall and fracture could be avoided in home as well as in public spaces. And a holistic approach is required in combating old age related disease. Multidisciplinary approaches participating public health scientists, stakeholders, and from other domains of clinical care, nutritionists, etc., will help in combating the aging related illnesses. And also there should be a policy that allocates separate budget for aging healthcare management system, and also a committee should be set up to monitor the old age abuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Next, we have Ms. Shruti Srinu also. If she is here, she can connect.
Yeah, sure, sir.
So we have 5 minutes for you as well. We can quickly move on to the findings and probably the conclusion part.
Sir, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible. You can go full screen and please go ahead with your presentation.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So, my fellow presenters had spoken about geriatrics, gerontology, their healthcare seeking behaviors, nutritional aspects, and all. So, let's talk about, or let me present before you a few ideas on various barriers to healthcare access for geriatric populations in rural India. So, globally, an estimated 1.5 billion people will be over 65 by 2050. And in Southeast Asian, if you see in those countries, the proportion of individuals aged 60 and up is expected to be 13.7% and 20.3% of the population in 2030 and 2050, respectively. We all know aging is frequently accompanied with progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass, as well as decline in metabolic functions, functional performances, and so on. There are other conditions like chronic illnesses, sensory impairments, and all. Despite these physiological changes that cause limits, research has shown that older people can age well, in fact. However, maintaining the health and the well being of this vulnerable demographic may pose a problem for any healthcare system. So, access to healthcare for the geriatric population in rural India has become a task, or in fact, it presents unique challenges. So, over the last 5 years, if we see, there has been progress with new responsibilities and with other medical infrastructures. With this presentation, we will be able to explore the barriers faced by the elderly individuals and propose some potential solutions to enhance the access to necessary
Research
services.
objectives. Please come directly to your research objectives.
Sure. Ma'am. So basically, the methods. So the methods that were used was for this literature was since it's a review literature, it was used from Scopus, PubMed, and Web of Science. And besides from the scientific studies, some newspaper pieces and government reports were also reviewed. And the data was managed using a Mendeley software. And especially the exclusion criteria was considered, wherein the elderly living in cities and articles about people of various ages were not taken into consideration. So, upon review, certain results was found. Interesting results were found, which were categorized into certain subtopics, such as demographic factors. So, in this demographic factors, if we see, 71% of India's senior population lives in rural areas, and according to this 2011 census, there are 104 million senior people in India, and it's
Out of time, can you just move on to the conclusion point?
sure, sir, definitely. So the demographic factors, aging issues, geographic issues, economic issues, social factors, and medical issues, transport. All these criterias were to be found in the during my literature review and conducting this review. So and coming to the discussion part or the conclusion part, it was found out that the most common reason for not seeking healthcare services were mainly financial security, followed by the belief that the condition is not very serious enough. And the second cause that was listed was a lack of accessible healthcare facilities. So elderly people living in rural areas are more vulnerable to various diseases and health inequity than the groups in other countries. So, given the projected demography, this will actually worsen unless we interfere or intervene and, in fact, provide viable infrastructure, healthcare facilities, services, and programs for them. So, the proposed solutions after the review was to improve the access, recommend enhanced transportation services, increase healthcare funding, which has been done, in fact, by the government of India recently, where the Ayushman Bharat scheme has been a little bit upgraded, where additional top up of 5 lakhs has been implemented for those people who are 70 years and above, those who are enrolled. So yearly they'll be given that. So that healthcare funding has been taken care of. And these initiatives can actually empower the elderly to seek timely medical assistance and improve their health outcomes. And also there is an urgent need to build a multifactorial framework to meet the future needs for chronic diseases, disease care and activities for daily living services. And also at the end, a diverse infrastructure is required for as well as a multidimensional strategy to maintain the geriatric health in a proper way. So these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. So such studies are very useful in terms of highlighting the obstacles to the geriatric population. We are ending with the presentations now. We can start with the further proceedings.
This was indeed a very insightful session. So I would like to request Professor Rumi Dev to felicitate Professor Chandana Sharma.
Yes.
मैम आपको ही जाना है। पहले से I would now request Professor Barun Mukhopadhyay to felicitate Vidisha Banerjee, ma'am. Dr. Vidisha.
Yes.
I would now I would request Professor Saraswati to felicitate Dr. Rohit.
Because you know you are to be felicitated. Dr. Rohit. Okay. Thank you. We can all take a group picture.
Yes.
Oh my God. Please. All the students join us. One and two. Yeah. Come. Nobody will come. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.